Yo, what's up? Just got to Balboa Park in San Diego. My main man Kevin here. I was about to make a video on the supposed miracle of accurate embryology in the Quran, but there are lots of different translations and lots of arguments. A lot of the arguments are completely inconsistent with each other. And so, here to ask Shaykh Uthman if he can give us sort of his approved translations of these different terms and so on, and that way I'll know where to start. Sadly, when I show up to ask a question like, "Can you explain this passage?" It turns into a 2-hour-long argument. We have to cover a bunch of other stuff ahead of time, but we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll get lucky and can be out of here in 10 or 15 minutes.
Then we always get that green. Oh, hey, Mr. Woods.
How you doing?
How you doing, man?
How's it going?
All right, good to see you back, man.
Hey.
So,
I don't want to interrupt.
No, I'd like to have you here. Why not?
Okay.
So, if you talk about the Sabbath, for example, being an obligation and how you have been put in all of the
Don't waste time. We got Durus. Go online. Go to Military Bot channel. We have a Mustalah al-Hadith dars. We have the Arabic language dars. Go to the Sira Durus. We have them posted on OMF and there. Watch them. Look at the evidences. Look up the books. If you don't have the books, come to the masjid. We have libraries. We'll show them to you. I've always offered Dave, but he never comes. Right? So, marhaban.
You tell me a good time to come. I'll come.
All right, we'll make some time. All right, Dave.
Hey,
Shaykh,
Shaykh,
how you doing? Good thing you came, man.
Shaykh, just wanted to say salam. I came from North Carolina. So.
Jazakallah khair. Great to see you, brother.
Came from Washington, D.C.
MashaAllah. It's always good to see the brothers come out from far.
Okay, Dawood. I have like 20 more questions. Yeah, I know. Step by step.
I'm so glad you came today.
Okay.
Need a bag?
Very good question, Dawood. Very good.
Oh, it's back.
Yeah. And then the green tafsir. How was your trip?
How you doing? I'm good.
Good, man. Good. How you doing?
My favorite Dawah booth.
And your favorite Shaykh, right?
And my favorite Shaykh.
Even though I don't call myself a Shaykh, but I appreciate the compliment.
You don't?
No,
That's like a
I'm
position.
just a student of knowledge, bro.
Student knowledge.
Student of talib al-ilm.
I can still call you Shaykh though, right?
You can if you like, man. But and I appreciate the compliment. And before we get into our fun discussions today, I just want to say I heard about your kids and I'm praying for them.
Oh, thank you.
May Allah, the one true Allah, bless your kids with full health and make everything easy for you. Say Ameen. Say Ameen. All right. So, since you're here, I caught something interesting. You told me that Ibn Kathir says when in the ayah جعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي, right? Which is that we made from water every living thing, right? And you said Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma said that this is referring to the sperm of a man, right?
No, I quoted a site that said that. If
Right.
they're wrong,
So
then-
interesting. So
yeah,
that's
if I'm wrong, then they're
that's
wrong.
an excellent point. So this is the actual tafsir of Ibn Kathir under the actual ayah. Find me the
Salam edition?
Dar es-Salaam it is, yes. Dar es-Salaam is a publisher. You know, understand, right? It's not a person, right? They publish hundreds and thousands of books, different
Yeah,
Muhammad,
I was
right?
just saying that because I don't have the green edition.
Oh, this is a hardcover. It's 10 volumes, I think. I don't use English, but here,
No, I've got one also that's hardcover, but it's red. So anyway, that was all
Still Dar
completely
es-Salaam?
irrelevant.
all right. So this is the ayah, and I looked through the actual book, and I don't find Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu making that tafsir. So what that tells me is all these videos you're making at home in front of your camera, you're misquoting things, and poor people that are watching your videos are being misguided because you don't know enough to actually look up the book, right? I mean, unless you can look up the tafsir and show it to me here. Okay, this is you were looking up
I
a
wasn't
Shia.
quoting Ibn Kathir.
You were.
Abbas. If that's incorrect, you need to take it up with the Muslim websites and say, hey, take this
That
is
was
incorrect.
Ahlul
If
Bayt.
you can show them that they're incorrect, I'm sure.
Excellent.
Unless you're saying they're liars, then they should take it down, and then we
So
stop
let
using it.
me explain this.
Okay.
What we're doing here is that you are going online to websites that you're assuming are by Muslims. You
But then
don't
I
know.
come here.
Exactly. So can you admit that Ibn Abbas did not make that tafsir and your accusation was false?
No.
Why not?
Well, I got.
You came
No.
here when I showed you the proof. You're not going to admit it.
No. If Shias are saying Ibn Abbas said this,
Sure.
and you're saying I don't have any preference one or the other. I know which side you're on.
Excellent.
So how would I distinguish?
Sure, I will tell you.
All right.
Because that website, you don't know who made it. So you are going to a random Googled website, right? And I'm just saying Shia because the name, right? But whether Shia, Sunni, or whoever, people need to bring you the actual evidences. And if you aren't careful enough to check which website, right now you could Google whether the earth is flat or not, and some website's going to have some weird arguments. And if you're just going off of that, you are misguiding your viewers. You are giving the information that is actually incorrect, that is not found, right? And for
everything, until I have a reason not to trust someone, right?
Excellent.
Like I could
now-
quote this, I could quote this
Yes.
to someone,
Right.
and then someone else could come and say, actually, Darussalam misrepresented that, and
Excellent.
they distorted it, and it's a bad translation.
I got you.
And
So-
if we can't study Islam like this, then
The
then
difference,
it just can't be
is,
studied. You know
the
what I mean?
difference is, it's not an issue of translation. That quote does not exist in the
Hey,
tafsir of
contact
this
them.
ayah.
They'll take it down. I'll drop
Excellent.
it.
But can you admit?
No, I
Why
don't.
not?
I don't know who to.
I
don't know
just
who to
showed
believe.
you evidence.
If a
I just
Shia,
showed you-
if
no.
if
You-
a group
you-
of Shia scholars says one thing, a
Listen,
group of Sunni
listen,
scholars says
listen,
one
listen.
thing,
Which
I don't
group-
know enough to
okay.
say, oh, the Shias are liars.
Excellent. But which Shia scholar said that?
They've got the.
You don't know.
They've
You
got
just
the
Googled
main
it.
tafsir site
You
that I'm
just
aware of.
Googled it. Who made that
No, I
site?
didn't. We didn't Google that. We use that site all the time. They've got Jalalain on there.
Who
They've
made
got
that site?
Ibn Abbas.
Who made that site? You don't know. You
Right.
see this? You see this?
There's no Google.
He's
That's
just
the site we
looking
use.
at.
That's
But
the site
you're
we use.
using websites. You don't even know who made them. You don't know that. I'm showing you the actual book, and you told me I'm your favorite Shaykh.
Look.
So now you gotta
you're
listen to
showing
your
me a book,
favorite
right.
Shaykh.
Suppose we go through here and the Arabic turns. Someone comes up to me and says, actually, they totally distorted this. I don't know Darussalam any more than I know
You see the difference
the
is,
Shias.
the difference is it's not about mistranslation. It's
No.
about the fact. It's
Someone,
about the fact
Darussalam
that
could make up anything they wanted. How would I know until that's
I'm here
until
to
that's
help
somehow
you.
exposed?
I'm here to help you.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, so let me tell you. When I look up books, including Ibn Kathir, and I have a video on the best print and things, I actually look up the handwritten manuscripts, right? That have been verified and checked, right?
Yeah.
So when you don't know, for you to make videos sitting in front of your camera at home, making all these accusations, looking up websites that you don't know, but before that, right? So I mean, you had many videos where you talk about these things, and you really have no
Did I use
reference.
that in the video?
I don't know. I
don't know either.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. If we can go through and find that Ibn Abbas in no book that can be attributed authentically talks about that ayah in that way, will you at least admit that you made a false accusation? If we can prove that.
Yeah, it'd be very simple. You can contact them, ask them where they're getting this. If they don't have it, if they don't have a place, they send you a message back saying, yeah, we screwed up. Then that's done.
And then David Wood will admit
Problem
that he
solved.
made a false accusation, and we're good.
I'll admit that I believed a Muslim website. Shame on me.
You don't know if they're Muslim. You don't know who made that website, so don't make assumptions.
Okay, so it's an atheist website giving the tafsir.
I don't know. So the issue is these websites, we don't know who made them. You don't know, and I don't know, and I shouldn't assume, and you shouldn't assume. I don't go online and find some website called ChristianSomething.com
That's true.
and
That's true.
assume.
That's true of everything here. I don't know who
That
made
is
this.
not.
I don't know who made this. I don't know who made this. I don't know who made this.
As I told
if someone
you.
shows me there's something wrong, then you can show me
As
there's
I
something
told
wrong.
you, for me, I bring you the actual book, right? I can bring you manuscript copies, I can bring you scans of the handwritten manuscripts. This is what I do. I do takhrij work, I do checking up those, I do tahqiq work. Farid Response, mashallah, he does a lot of this work as well, right? And many other ulama and scholars and tullab ilm, they go and verify all of this. So for you to come and ask us, we would be more than happy, as I'm doing, to show you the actual evidences. So don't go online and trust any website that you go to. Rather, come and ask, and when you find out that you were wrong, don't have so much pride. Be humble enough to be like, my bad. I just looked up some random website that I don't know who made, and some Shia reference to it that I never looked at a book or who's the one that compiled it, and I trusted it, and I made assumptions, out of me, right? When you assume, it makes a right. But
You about to say that word?
nah,
You
I'm
caught
not.
yourself,
I'm
no?
not. But you know what I'm saying.
All right.
All right.
Yeah,
go
we got
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
All right. I wanted to ask you about this time. I have not shared this with anyone, but I've seen other people sharing it. So I just wanted to ask you real quick. Now, my actual question is just about the embryology and how you would translate these passages. But Yeah, since everyone's sharing this,
Who's everyone?
a bunch of people.
Oh,
You've seen people sharing this. Muslims who don't like you and Christians who don't
And
like
there are
you.
Muslims that don't like?
There are some.
Very weird.
So, my main question was just: is that Photoshop? Is that a photo? Is that a Photoshop?
So let me explain it to you.
Okay.
First off, you want me to read it? Or?
I'll go ahead and read
Go
it.
ahead.
So, someone named Mansour Maliki, who doesn't seem to like you, or me, he doesn't like me either,
Oh, okay.
said, so to be absolutely, he's talking to you, he says, so to be absolutely clear, you agree that jizya should be imposed on all disbelievers, and if they refuse, they should be fought and their women and children enslaved. And you replied, at least according to this.
Sure.
Again, I don't know, Photoshop. You could
I
post.
got you.
You could post them. I mean, you could ask me, David, do you like mashed potatoes? I say yes, and then you could switch the question to,
Happens all the
David,
time.
do you torture puppies or something like that?
You
Right?
torture puppies?
No. See,
I'm glad
it's
you don't.
Photoshop, right?
I agree.
So he asks, do you agree that jizya should be imposed on all disbelievers, and if they refuse, they should be fought and their women and children enslaved? The response here is, of course, and I have already made all of this clear in my durus, but you never reached out to ask me. So the relevant questions would be, is that Photoshopped or something, or is there something else in the discussion that would clarify that? Keep in mind, saw this a while back, did not share it with one person, because I was like, I know I'll be talking to you, so I might as well ask first.
Okay. First thing, there's been a clarification posted on Twitter. I had given up all my social media, right, which I did not respond to that personally.
You're not on social media?
I am not on social media. Okay. Even the Twitter post that you're looking at, if you go to the actual Twitter page, there's a post on there that clarifies that I am not the one who runs the Twitter page, right? I created that Twitter page originally as Abu Kutub just to explain books. What I used to talk about is, this is the book, this is the best manuscript, this is the best tahqiq, this is the best print, this is what's coming up, this is the benefits. When the traffic picked up so much that I couldn't keep up, I gave it up, right? And there was a post posted on Twitter to clarify. Okay? So that tweet was not from me personally, it was from my Twitter account, right? And there were other things done on that Twitter account, like some tweets which I did not agree with, and we made that clarification on Twitter, right? So we're clear about that. But if you want to talk about jizya, I'd be more than happy to discuss it.
Yeah, sure. So, wait a second. So,
Go ahead.
someone who works for you and controlled this Twitter
Does not
account
work
said,
for me. Somebody who volunteered to take care of the Twitter account made that post, and as I disapproved of it, he deleted it.
So you disproved it, it got deleted.
Yes, and that's
So
why.
you do know. So just to be clear,
Yes.
because I want it clear, because people
good.
are
I like
people
clarity.
are sharing this, right?
I know, yeah.
And I think
And we've already made it clear, but haters gonna hate, right? What you
yeah.
gonna do?
Well, I mean, keep in mind because I found this from experience too. You know, you can say something about me and I can post a response. It doesn't mean everyone pays attention to my response, right? Just like someone can come after you.
Sure.
Not all that person's followers are going to see your response. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate you making this clarification for me.
Okay. So, just to be clear, you do not believe that jizya should be imposed on all disbelievers, and if they refuse, they should be fought and their women and children enslaved.
No. Right? But there are ahkam and places where jizya is implemented. Not all disbelievers. For example, when you have, I'll just give you a short example, right? For example, if you have Ahlul Dhimma that don't have the protection that's been given, there is no jizya, right? If there are Ahlul Dhimma that are not living under your Sharia, there is no jizya, right? So that cannot be blanketly used in that sense.
Has that been explained to Mansour Maliki?
I don't know who Mansour Maliki is, and if he wants, like, he can come and ask me directly. He didn't, so that means there's somebody who's just out there trying to cause.
He doesn't like either one of us. He said, when he posted this, he said, Uthman Farooq is actually a pathological liar. When with Christians, he'll deny things like offensive jihad and slavery, but when with Muslims, he'll affirm it. Him and David Wood are both vile. So we don't like either one of them.
So
So,
let me.
you got it.
Hold on. Let me.
He replied, pay attention.
Pay attention.
Mansour.
Mansour is a troll. Nobody cares who he is.
Is he
but I have
Muslim,
it's
right?
probably some atheist out there trying to be a troll. I don't know. Don't
Stop
care.
trolling.
Now, but just a clarification of that as well. I have never denied that there is anything called offensive jihad, right? That's a lie from him, and if he can bring evidence, I'd be more than happy to see it, right? I have never changed my views in front of Christians and Muslims. Everything I say is recorded. Everything I say in the masjid in front of Muslims is recorded and posted. Everything I say to you is recorded and posted. These are just haters, right? These are people of hasad, and that's why they want to, if this was somebody who wanted good for me or you, obviously they would reach out to me and you privately and ask us how we feel, and as we would explain it to him, make that public. But instead, he went and even though there was a clarification posted that this was not from me, and that tweet was immediately deleted when I saw it, even then he continued to post it because these are trolls, right? Islam has rules and regulations for defensive jihad and offensive jihad. There is rules and regulations for Ahlul Dhimma. I have a whole video that I talk about Jizya. So for him to say that I changed this is just his ignorance of knowing me, right? So I'm glad you made that clarification.
Now, you offered to explain Jizya real quick. Is there a short version of it?
Sure.
Okay, what's Jizya in a nutshell?
Excellent. So, as a Muslim, we do believe that we have rules and regulations that Allah has ordained upon us, and we do not enforce our religious practices on others, right? So, we have zakat, for example, right? As a Muslim, living in the Muslim state, we have zakat. Zakat goes into Baytul Mal. You know what Baytul Mal is?
What's that?
I'm here to help you, bro. No problem. I'm your Shaykh, right? All right. So, the Muslim government has what kind of like what you would consider treasury, right? And in Islamic form of governments, we don't have taxes. So all you libertarians become Muslim, right? So, what we do have is we have zakat that comes in from Muslims. That is a religious obligation. And that goes into Baytul Mal, and there are certain categories of people and projects that goes toward, which are lined out in the Quran and the entire books of stuff on it. Now, we don't enforce that on non-Muslims, right? Like here in America, for example, you pay taxes, I pay taxes, right? But as under a Muslim Khilafah, we don't have taxes. How does the government get that revenue? From Muslims, they get it through zakat. If we were to enforce zakat on non-Muslims, then this would be putting a religious obligation of Muslims on them, and we don't want to infringe on their religious rights. So they have jizya. Jizya is only given when they enjoy benefits from the Islamic government, meaning protection, police service, whatever else. Well, you look confused, you know, all up in the sky.
I'm thinking about what you just said.
Think. Ponder upon it, bro. I got you. So jizya is their paying into the Islamic government's functions for the services they receive. For example, in America, you pay taxes, right? I don't know which state you're in, depending how much taxes you pay, but in California, we pay a lot of taxes, right? But the government says, hey, you pay your taxes, we give you police service, we give you roads, we give you the military, we give you these protections, right? Now, as a non-Muslim living under Muslim rule, you will get those benefits, and as you get those benefits, you will pay into the system, okay? Now, if we didn't, then it would be a hardship that would be borne only by the Muslims who would be paying zakat, and non-Muslims would not be paying anything to the government's functions. Right? If, and as it has been during times of Islamic history, that those functions are not delivered, jizya is not taken. There have been times, like during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, where jizya was returned, right? So this is their taxes that they pay into the services they receive, which I think you would think is fair.
Yeah, well, the reason I was
the reason. Go ahead.
A little inquisitive there. So I was thinking. So Muhammad said, "My livelihood is under the shade of my spear, and he who disobeys my orders will be humiliated by paying jizya." And so he describes it as humiliation. So Muhammad describes it as humiliation. One second, I just wanted to quote Ibn Kathir on the same issue. So Ibn Kathir, paying jizya.
Which ayah are we looking at?
This would be on 929. Paying jizya is a sign of kufr and disgrace. Allah said, until they pay the jizya, if they do not choose to embrace Islam with willing submission, in defeat and subservience, and feel themselves subdued, disgraced, humiliated, and belittled. Therefore, Muslims are not allowed to honor the people of the Dhimma or elevate them above Muslims, for they are miserable, disgraced, and humiliated.
Sure.
Muslim recorded from Abu Hurairah that the Prophet said, do not initiate the salam to the Jews and Christians, and if you meet any of them in a road, force them to its narrowest alley.
Sure.
And then he goes on to, I know the Pact of Umar is disputed as far as whether that was actually from Umar and things. But he goes on to quote the Pact of Umar. The one where he gives the conditions of, for the Dhimmi contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. You're mentioning a lot of things and you're kind of going forward instead of
Well,
addressing
the only issue there was you're portraying it as, hey, it's just payment for services. Whereas they're describing it as you're humiliated, you're disgraced, you're belittled. If you see a Christian or a Jew, shove them down this alleyway.
That's got nothing to do with jizya itself, but we'll talk about that as well. First thing, can I look at the hadith now? That you're trying to so frequently trying to get over? Even its famous websites, man. You gotta buy yourself some books.
This is directly from the Darussalam edition of Sahih al-Bukhari.
What you're looking up where? This is not from Darussalam. That's a lie. Hold on. This here is not Darussalam's
I
Ibn
personally
Kathir.
guarantee you.
Ibn
No,
Kathir.
that's not Ibn Kathir.
Oh,
That's the
okay,
hadith.
okay.
That's hadith. That's Sahih
So,
al-Bukhari.
okay, excellent. Bukhari. Okay, let's clarify that because you were pointing at Ibn Kathir, right? So,
Yeah, when I quoted Ibn Kathir, I quoted Muhammad first.
Gotcha. So, now let's look at the hadith. جعل رزقي تحت الظل. Right? So this is what you were saying, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the rizq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam under the sword, right? Now, you know about khums, I'm assuming.
No, what's that?
All right, so I'm glad you can translate.
So that's Muhammad's livelihood.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there, right? And see, you've cut this for some reason, so we don't have.
Because that's a quotation.
Okay, but there's a reference here with the one there, which we don't know what it says because you cut
I can look it up.
Okay, cool. So the livelihood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what's called the khums. This doesn't come from jizya. Okay? That's the first thing you misunderstood the hadith, right? This is why we have a wow here to show a different subject that's coming up. Okay? The livelihood of Rasulullah does not come from ghanima, it does not come from zakat, it does not come from sadaqah, it comes what's called the khums. The khums would be that if there is a battle, from the spoils of the war itself, not the jizya later, from the spoils of the war, you would take 1/5 of that to be given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he could then spend it upon the people and upon his expenses and so on. Right? So you misunderstood the hadith first off by thinking this is talking about jizya, right? Second,
He does say jizya.
I know, but
I didn't believe the first part was about jizya. The second part.
okay. No, you said the livelihood of Rasulullah comes from jizya, which is on tape.
No. I quoted it.
You didn't say that? I'm glad we got it on
My
tape.
livelihood is under the shade of my spear, and
Right.
he who disobeys my
Right.
orders will be humiliated by paying jizya.
Excellent.
The thing was, you're portraying jizya as, hey, this
It
happy
is.
fun money to take care of you.
I didn't say happy
he says
fun money.
humiliated by paying jizya. That's what I was asking about.
Sure. Let me explain it, bro. Take it easy. First thing that you need to clarify for your audience is the livelihood of Rasulullah SAW does not come from jizya. Are we clear on that? Now you look confused. You just said you didn't say that, but it's all right. We got you, bro. That's what we're here for.
We got you.
Okay. So the livelihood of Rasulullah. This is the problem with people who don't have enough knowledge to look up references. They take one hadith or one ayah and then they think they know. But I'm glad you're here because we're here to teach you. We're here to wash your misconceptions out. So the livelihood of Rasulullah comes from what's called khums, right? That's why you have books like Fath al-Bari. Books like of hadith are not studied in silos, right? This is when you look at all the majmu' al-hadith and you look at it, right? This and the wow is not to show regarding livelihood. This is then talking about those that disobey the Prophet ﷺ after the battle, right? Because jizya is only on those that are there. Now, as I said, if Muslims, and we'll look at Ibn Kathir in a second now, right? If Muslims were paying zakat, right, and the non-Muslims were not paying anything, right, would you agree that that would not be fair?
In a situation where people are benefiting from the arrangement.
Right, we already mentioned that, right? So if you are under protection of the Islamic State, right, the defense, police, roads, all those services are being given, Muslims are paying zakat, okay? Non-Muslims are not paying anything. Would you consider that fair?
None of that is the point. The
Yeah,
point,
no,
the point
it
is,
is the
jizya
point.
is the humiliation.
It is the point.
Jizya is the humiliation.
It is the point if you would listen, right? So you want to jump because you know it's going to become clear, but I'm not going to let you jump. You're going to be in your place, son. So here, I'm asking you a question. In the Islamic Khilafah, you have Muslims and non-Muslims. You got Muslims paying zakat, Zakat is going to Bayt al-Mal, which you didn't look up any of those ahadith because you didn't really want to learn. You just wanted to make this video, but I got it.
No need to keep insulting.
No, I'm not insulting.
That's not
an
let
insult.
you explain.
That is not an insult, right? That is letting you know what you did and how we're going to clarify it, right? So, if you look at the ahadith about zakat, for example, which you didn't look up that bab for some reason, right? Because then you would see that the Muslim he humbles himself, right, willingly, right, by paying zakat, right or wrong, right? So when you pay zakat, and that money goes into the system, and then from yatam and masakin and even non-Muslims that you can give zakat to, as you look at the conditions given in the Quran, and a non-Muslim living there in that society is not paying any of that. Would you find that to be fair?
No, you should be required to.
Excellent.
Again,
Excellent.
None of that's the issue.
It is the issue.
It's the humiliation
It is the issue.
You wouldn't say that Muslims are humiliated by paying zakat.
I would say that we are humble but willing.
Humiliated.
I'm explaining. There's a difference, right? If I pay taxes willingly, right, then I am humbled by having to pay taxes. If I choose not to and the government forces me to pay taxes, I am humiliated by them forcefully taking it from me. Correct? Yeah, I got you. So, when you're living in a Muslim khilafah and the Muslim pays zakat willingly, right? They humble themselves. If not, and this is where you're missing, right? In the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when the Muslims stopped paying zakat, you know about this? Son, you don't watch my videos.
Wait.
You don't watch my videos.
Go over that again?
In the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu.
Oh, okay, yeah. When there was the apostasy wars.
So there was the Ridda wars against
yeah.
Musaylim al-Kadhab, but that was a different issue.
They refused to pay zakat, and Abu Bakr said, if they refuse to give me even a rope that they used to give Muhammad, I'm coming to fight.
You will humiliate them by taking it from them. Right? Even though those were people who made salah, who prayed, who said they were Muslim. So what is the humiliation is they were forced then, because they weren't willingly given. Right? So here in the hadith, it clarifies that as well. As a Muslim, I'm not humiliated with zakat because I pay zakat willingly. If I do not, then the Khilafah will force me and humiliate me by forcefully taking the zakat because that is the haqq, that is the right of the poor. But Ahlul Dhimma, that would not be paying, then they would be forced to pay the jizya because it would not be fair, as you have already agreed. So that is the humiliation.
So when Ibn Kathir says,
so let's get to Ibn Kathir.
He says paying jizya is a sign of kufr and disgrace.
So what website is this? You and your website. If you had told me, I would have brought Ibn Kathir's actual book, the volume.
This is the same as Darul Salam.
This is Darul Salam's print?
No. That's I believe it's Yusuf Esdi's website.
Yusuf Esdi says it's tafsir? Okay, anyway.
No.
So let's go.
I believe that's his
so
site.
go ahead. Where were you?
It just starts at the beginning. Paying jizya.
Until they pay jizya and they do not choose to embrace Islam. With willing submission. So what does this show? Right? What does it say? That if they came with willing...
That's just quoting 929.
Right, so that's what I'm telling you the ayah, right? What is the meaning here?
Allah said, until they pay the jizya, if they do not choose to embrace Islam.
The next line.
With willing submission.
There you go.
It defines willing submission as in defeat and subservience.
Exactly. So what does that mean? If you are not going to be willingly submitting, then you will be defeated and no doubt made subservient. That's a humiliation, is it not?
That's not what that's saying at all.
Okay, so can you read?
He's commenting.
No. Read the word
okay.
Instead of giving your interpretation. You're not Ibn Kathir.
Okay. Paying jizya is a sign of kufr and disgrace. He
You
doesn't say.
skipped it.
I started at the very beginning. Paying jizya.
This is not from Ibn Kathir. This is your ignorance again. May Allah give you some knowledge.
This is an example because Darul Salam will have the exact same thing. If you would say it's not in there.
Not. Here is Darul Salam, right? What I'm trying to explain to you, these are titles that have been put in that are not in the actual Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Okay?
They have them right there. Those are the titles.
That's what I'm trying to. This is. If you get Tafsir Ibn Kathir, Ibn Kathir does not put these in. Okay? These are put in to give you an idea of where you are. Okay? So that's not the words of Ibn Kathir. I have Tafsir Ibn Kathir in many different prints. I have scans of manuscripts. I'm just trying to help you understand. this here is a title put in, because the way Ibn Kathir works, it doesn't go ayah by ayah, right? It takes a sort of chapter, so the printers, whoever put this in, they put that in. Here, Allah says is where Ibn Kathir begins, which is the ayah. When you read the ayah, what you were skipping earlier is the willing submission.
I never skipped it earlier.
Okay, let's read it. Read it from the beginning of the ayah.
Allah said, until they pay the jizya,
Yes.
if they do not choose to embrace Islam. Right? Notice, it doesn't...
Keep going.
If they
Keep
do not
going.
choose to embrace Islam,
Right.
with willing submission,
There you go.
in defeat and subservience.
Exactly.
So he's describing willing submission as defeat and subservience.
No!
That's his commentary.
Miskin,
That's the
miskin,
Quran. That's the
miskin.
Quran. That's his commentary.
Miskin, you poor soul. I feel bad for you. With willing submission is what they should do. And now Ibn Kathir is explaining that when they do not, that means that they will be defeated. In defeat and submissiveness is then when you talk about the humiliation, when they're subdued because they didn't willingly submit. You didn't understand Ibn Kathir. Go ahead. Now read it again.
The verse of the Quran says,
Willing
until
submission.
they pay the jizya with willing submission
Right, so
and feel themselves subdued.
Right, so
That's
this-
what the Quran says. It doesn't say until they pay the jizya with willing submission and if they find, then they will feel themselves subdued. None of that.
Let me explain it again to you, right? So the first option is for them to become Muslim.
Okay.
Willingly they accept, right? If they do not, then they will pay the jizya, right? If they do not do it in a way of willingness, if they do not willingly accept Islam, they do not accept this, then this is the defeat and submission, the jizya that they will have to be forced to pay. Okay? So that is, and as I explained, in America, for example, if you, David Wood, say, F the IRS, not that you would use those kind of words, right? I'm not paying my taxes, right? And then the IRS will say, oh yes you are, and we're going to take you to court, and we're going to humiliate you, we're going to put you on trial, we'll send you to jail if we have to, we will make you pay those taxes, because you're not going to do it willingly. So are you not humiliated?
Yeah, I'm just still not
So
convinced
that
that's
is
what
the
this
thing.
is saying.
Okay.
Because notice, I mean, he goes on
Right.
to...
He's talking about the humiliation from those that do not willingly submit. Go ahead.
Wow, not what this is saying at all. This is wait. So let me get this straight. So when he goes on here and he says,
Read the ayah before you go. The part that he quotes.
and feel themselves subdued.
So what is this tafsir of now?
Surah 929.
No. Of them being subdued. He's explaining them being subdued. That's the tafsir he's making now. But what does it mean to be subdued?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Disgraced, humiliated, and belittled.
That's what means to be subdued, right?
Therefore, Muslims are not allowed to honor the people of the Dhimma. Notice, it doesn't say people of the Dhimma who rebelled and so on. So therefore, Muslims are not allowed to honor the people of the Dhimma.
Context. Hold on. Context. What you're doing is the ayah is talking about those that fought, did not willingly submit, did not become Muslim, and had to be subdued. So that's the Ahlul Dhimma you're talking about. Ahlul Dhimma have different categories, right? Just because he doesn't say clarify because of the context, don't assume he's talking about something else. Ahlul Dhimma, for example, those that are given their harbi, for example, those that were actually fighting you. There are those that are not harbi, that were those that supported you. You know about this, right? There's a book, try to get it. It's called Ahkam Ahlul Dhimma Ibn al-Qayyim. Okay? It explains all the different things so that you can be more educated with your responses. Go ahead.
So when he goes on to say, quotes Muhammad, do not initiate the salam to the Jews and Christians. And if you meet any of them in a road, force them to its narrowest alley. You're saying that only applies to rebels, not to just Jews and Christians
that
in
does
general.
not. Let me explain that hadith. As you know, that there are times where you can say salam to a non-Muslim. For example, in the Quran, when it says the people of Jahl, ignorance come, qulu salam. Right? That hadith, because you don't know context again, is when the Yahud, there were Jews in Medina, that would say sam alayk. They would say, may death and poison and things be upon you. You know the hadith or
It
you
says
don't?
Jews and Christians.
But I'm telling you the context of the hadith itself. Okay? So, when they used to do this, in
They
a
would say
hadith.
death be upon you or something
Yes,
like that?
yeah. You know about the hadith or you know? You know about it? You don't know.
Yeah, the one where they were slurring something. They were slurring
Yeah,
something. So they're
exactly.
actually
So
saying
you
death.
do know about it. You're just trying to hide it. I got you. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she responded She said, may death be upon you, and she went off on them. Rasulullah said, alayki bil fahish. It's upon you, don't get, just say wa alaykum. Don't initiate the salam, because when you do, then they may respond to you with something that is disgraceful, right? So just tell them wa alaykum. Don't say wa alaykum as-salam, don't get upset. In Tafsir ibn Kathir, for example, or in Fath al-Bari, there are different opinions among scholars. Some of them said, if the dhimmi is such, or a person, that they do not curse you, you are allowed to initiate the salam. Other ulama said, no, because of the fear of that changing things, you should keep the salam for the Muslim. This is the greeting for Muslims, which I agree with, right? And if a non-Muslim does greet you, you say wa alaykum. If you tell me salam alaikum, I will say wa alaikum. If you wish peace for me, I will wish it for you. If you wish death for me, then I'll say wa dhimmi. Yeah, you don't. I just told you the hadith in its full context. Miskeen, right? like you get proven wrong all these times, but
I'm just clarifying. I want your version of Islam.
It's not my version. It is. I didn't make up the hadith for Uthman. You look up the hadith, right? Where Rasul says, "Qul wa alaykum." Say, what do you say? Wa alaykum. So even as a dhimmi, even you're not a dhimmi because you're not living in the Khilaf anyway, but as a non-Muslim, if you come to me and you say assalamu alaikum with good intent, I will say wa alaikum. If you wish salam for me, I wish salam for you. But if you try to curse me with those words, then I will say wa alaikum, and whatever you wish for me will come back to you.
What about the hadith where Ibn Umar, someone gives him the salam, he says salam, and then he goes away, and then it was told to him that was a Jew or something like this, and he comes back and he says, "Give me back my greeting."
Show it to me.
I'll have to look it up.
Then look it up, and then we'll look at it. Okay.
All right.
Because context, you've already proven that you always take things out of context. Maybe out of mistake. I'm not saying it intentionally. So I want to see the hadith, and we can explain it.
Okay.
This hadith about saying salam, you can look it up on Islam QA, whatever that's the website you're familiar with, and it talks about the conditions where you can say wa alaykum as-salam and which ulama take opinion. And if not, as I said, I have Fath al-Bari, the Sharh al-Bukhari by Ibn Hajar, he explains it as well, so you can open your mind. So, now, when you talk about jizya, if you're looking at it just from the perspective of one ayah, one hadith, this is where you misunderstand the full concept, right? But when you look at it from the full context of how it's implemented, right? In implementation, if you are non-Muslim, living in a Muslim land, enjoying the services provided to you by the Islamic government, right? In response for those services, you pay into the system, right? Me as a Muslim, I pay zakat, you pay jizya. Do you see any problem with that?
No problem with paying government.
I'm glad you don't. So, no problem with jizya. Jazakallah khair. Next.
Oh, problem with jizya.
Oh, okay. You just said you don't.
I just am not seeing any of that in the source. But what do you think about the pact with Omar?
Let me explain that. Regarding when you say you're not seeing that, which book of fiqh of jizya have you studied?
I'm just talking about the passage here.
I'm explaining.
If you can't if you go to the Quran and you can't understand it, and you go to the commentary and you can't understand it, and you go to the Hadith and you can't understand it, it just seems like this is not able to be understood.
I got you. When you talk about learning law, you're talking about Islamic law, right? Right? You do not say, as David, that you just pick up one book of law from anywhere and then you will have your own understanding, right? You are not reading a book of implementation of jizya, right? You're not, right? What you're doing is you found these verses, not randomly, you found them.
Here's a verse.
Right, but how did you get to the verse?
Let me look up Ibn Kathir.
Wait, how did you get to the verse?
Reading the Quran.
You were just reading the Quran randomly and the ayah came?
I have entire Qurans highlighted all the way through.
Tell me the truth. Were you just randomly reading the Quran and that ayah came, or were you
I saw
looking?
this long before I ever actually read through the entire Quran.
So, what you did is you found a verse that you found that you could use to be problematic, and then you hold on, I'm getting it, right? Then you went and looked it up to try to make this attack on Islam. What you should have done is gone to a book that talks about the implementation of Islamic law. And from the Quran and from Sahih Ahadith, they would have brought you the majmu'ah, all of them, to show how jizya works. But you had an intention to take a jab instead of learn. So I'll tell you what, again, we have a book, I'm making an offer here. Okay? We have a book called Zadul Mustaqni the fiqh book, that brings then the evidences from the Quran and Sahih Ahadith and Aqwal of Sahaba and the different madhahib. We are going through it. Right? Watch the video from the beginning with Tahara, Salah, Siyam. We will go over Jizya. We will go over Jihad, Qital, offensive, defensive, all of that, right? With not just one ayah, but looking at all of the ayat, looking at all of the ahadith and the scholarly deduction of ulama, so you can learn.
Now, I am going to prove that everything you just said is complete nonsense.
All right, cool.
All right. With Ibn Kathir. So, according to Shaykh Uthman,
I like how you're getting all dramatic.
Yeah.
Get with it. Go, girl.
According to Shaykh, I never called this man a girl.
I'm just saying go, girl. I'm not saying you're a girl.
All right. So, do not initiate the salam to the Jews and Christians, and if you meet any of them in a road, force them to its narrowest alley. Shaykh Uthman said here in the presence of everyone on video that this is only referring to the people who refuse to pay the jizya, and therefore things had to get harsher for them. All right.
Hold on. You made a point. Hold on. First thing, on video you just lied upon me. So I told you that hadith about the salam was not in reference to jizya. That hadith, I gave you the full version, but you ignored that, right? Instead,
yeah, but I asked you wouldn't do that with even if I was a dhimmi.
I told you with the dhimmi, ghair dhimmi, that hadith does not mention dhimmiya. You are saying that I said this is about the dhimmi, and I, on video...
Ibn Kathir said it's about the dhimmi.
No, he didn't. He was explaining to you the context about the relationship with the dhimmiya. He did not say that it has to be the dhimmi.
But you said this is about the people who have refused to pay jizya, so
not.
that would be the context.
I did not.
No. You're saying his commentary here. No, I'm not saying that hadith. I'm saying if you're saying that this is about people who refuse to pay the jizya, and he quotes it, then that means he would be in that context. Unless you're saying he's wrong and quoting this out of place.
Let me explain this to you a third time.
Okay.
But if you could actually, right now, this ayah was talking about those that are subdued.
Okay.
Past that, Ibn Kathir is giving you general context.
Okay.
Right?
All
now, I made it very clear that this hadith was not about a dhimmiya, but general, and I gave you the reference about the hadith of Aisha radiyallahu anha, and you ignored that.
I'm fine with that. I got that. I thought you were also applying it. I stand corrected, but Ibn Kathir is still going to correct you.
That few minutes of him saying that he's going to destroy everything I said, he stands corrected.
We didn't get to it. All right.
Bro.
This is why the leader of the faithful, Umar bin al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, demanded his well-known conditions be met by the Christians. These conditions that ensured their continued humiliation, degradation, and disgrace. So ongoing humiliation, degradation, and disgrace. The scholars of Hadith narrated from Abdur Rahman that he said, I recorded for Umar bin al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, in terms of the treaty of peace he conducted with the Christians of Asham. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, this is a document to the servant of Allah, Umar. This is the document that they were required to have for the agreement. This is a document to the servant of Allah, Umar, the leader of the faithful, from the Christians of such and such city. When you Muslims came to us, we requested safety for ourselves, children, property, and followers of our religion. So they're requesting safety. We made a condition on ourselves that we will neither erect in our areas a monastery, church, or a sanctuary for a monk, nor restore any place of worship that needs restoration, nor use any of them for the purpose of enmity against Muslims. We will not prevent any Muslim from resting in our churches, whether they come by day or night, and we will open the doors of our houses of worship for the wayfarer and passerby. Those Muslims who come as guests will enjoy boarding and food for 3 days. We will not allow a spy against Muslims into our churches and homes, or hide deceit or betrayal against Muslims. We will not teach our children the Quran. Interesting. We will not teach our children the Quran, publicize practices of shirk, invite anyone to shirk, or prevent any of our fellows from embracing Islam, if they choose to do so. We will respect Muslims, move from the places we sit in if they choose to sit in them. We will not imitate their clothing, caps, turbans, sandals, hairstyles, speech, nicknames, and title names, or ride on saddles, hang swords on the shoulders, collect weapons of any kind, or carry these weapons. We will not encrypt our stamps in Arabic or sell liquor. We will have the front of our hair cut, wear our customary clothes wherever we are, wear belts around our waist, refrain from erecting crosses on the outside of our churches and demonstrating them and our books in public in Muslim fairways and markets. We will not sound the bells in our churches except discreetly, or raise our voices while reciting our holy books inside our churches in the presence of Muslims, nor raise our voices with prayer at our funerals, or light torches in funeral processions in the fairways of Muslims or their markets. We will not bury our dead next to Muslim dead or by servants who were captured by Muslims. We will be guides for Muslims and refrain from breaching their privacy in their homes. When I gave this document to Umar, he added, "We will not beat any Muslim. These are the conditions that we set against ourselves and followers of our religion in return for safety and protection. If we break any of these promises that we set for your benefit against ourselves, then our dhimma, promise of protection, is broken, and you are allowed to do with us what you are allowed of people of defiance and rebellion." So, short recap. Ibn Kathir here. Ibn Kathir explains how his well-known conditions that ensured the continued humiliation, degradation, and disgrace were placed on these Christians. These were not Christians, but he goes on to show, these were not Christians who said, "We refuse to pay. We refuse all of this." He said,
So let me just, before you...
yeah, they came to them and said, "We want safety." They're saying, "We want safety. We don't want to be fought. We're willing to pay the jizya." And even though they're willing to pay the jizya, all of these conditions, they can't repair a church, they can't do any of that stuff, they can't make their voices loud.
You know it's a weak hadith, right?
Ibn Kathir, under the bus again. Ibn Kathir, under the bus again. Ibn Kathir quoted things that he regarded as reliable.
Hold on. First thing, he did not say it was reliable. You lied on Ibn Kathir.
No. You're saying Ibn Kathir is deliberately quoting hadiths he regards as weak?
Did you notice how he said ru'ya muhaddithin? Right? That's the weakness of his understanding, and instead of asking, he wants to come and prove everything I said wrong and then take it back. Let me just explain it. Ibn Kathir is a great book of tafsir. No doubt we have respect for him.
But you're great.
No, I am not.
You have to be if you're schooling him.
Relax. Got you, bro. I did not even write a book of tafsir, so
Ibn
obviously...
Kathir, Shaykh Uthman.
I appreciate the compliment, David, but it is not true. Ibn Kathir, I'm a nobody. But there is a great scholar, Abu Saq al-Humayni, for example, in Ibn Jawzi's... Are you paying attention, bro?
I'm wondering, I had a phone here and that wasn't not mine. Oh, my phone.
So, good. So, there are books written on the checking of the ahadith of Ibn Kathir.
Okay.
Ibn Kathir is not Sahih al-Bukhari. It is not a book of all authentic narration. It's a book of tafsir, right? Now, it is a very valued book of tafsir, no doubt to it. But as if you had watched my video about books of tafsir, I had explained even which prints show the weak narrations of Ibn Kathir. David, what happened?
You're still refuting.
No, I'm there. Relax. I didn't refute Ibn Kathir. Those great scholars of hadith that went and checked those ahadith, they explained the weakness of those narrations. Ibn Kathir does not say anywhere in his tafsir that I'm only quoting Sahih ahadith. He's giving you context, he's giving you what has been narrated, and the style, if you had learned, of a scholar like Ibn Kathir, when he sees a hadith to be Sahih, he will say it is authentically narrated. Sahih an al-Nabi alayhi salam, isnadul jayyid. When he knows that there are weaknesses, he will say, it has been reported, as he does here. Ru'ya, and it has been reported by the ulama of hadith. He did not authenticate the narration. If you had come and asked, I can show you the original checking, and I can show you those great scholars of Islam, not me, who showed the weakness in these narrations. There are many ahadith Ibn Kathir quotes and then mentions they're weak himself, right? Because you have not learned, you assume things again, right? So this narration, and again,
he says that's weak?
He does not say it's weak, but in his style of reporting it, he points out that there is a weakness. That's why he doesn't say Sahih an al-Nabi, it has been authentic from Umar ibn Khattab. Rather, he says Ru'ya, it has been reported. Right? Now, if you like to get a takhrij of Ibn Kathir, and we have many, then you can go look at the narration, where it's originally from, and the weaknesses in its change. You're welcome.
Not quite.
I just said you're welcome.
When Ibn Kathir is talking about jizya at the beginning of that passage,
Well, you don't understand that hadith of a week. You understood that part, right? And you just went on that big tirade on a weak hadith.
I don't care whether it's weak or
Just
weak
like
or not.
your
I care how
hadith.
Ibn Kathir is using it.
Well,
So
why?
because you're saying that what all Ibn Kathir is saying is
This has been reported. That's it.
no. Before that, all Ibn Kathir is saying, according to you, he's just saying that if someone refuses to pay the jizya, then that person will be humiliated and disgraced. Right? So no. You're saying that's what he's saying, but then in order to back up what he's saying, he quotes this passage about Christians who were willingly entering into this contract, were forced to be degraded in all kinds of ways, and if they went against their contract in any way, then they would be treated differently beyond all the disgrace. So the only point is here, you can say weak, you can say strong. The context of Ibn Kathir's comments about jizya are in that context. So to claim that he's actually saying something that completely goes against all his background evidence that he's presenting, which is
not what I said.
very strange.
Let me explain this again.
Okay.
First thing, when Umar ibn Khattab, the same person you're talking about, when he went into Jerusalem, you know the historic reports, right?
Yeah.
You know there were churches there, right? And they invited him to pray in a church, right? You don't know? You know David does this when he doesn't have an answer. I get your body language cute. Yeah? All right, so when you go to the actual historic authentic narration, when Umar radiyan went to Jerusalem, and there were Christians and there were Jews who had their place to worship, did he not allow them to worship? Sure. He did. Did he, even when they asked him to come pray in the church, he told them, I would, but I'm afraid that Muslims might take this from you as a place of prayer because I prayed there and I want this to remain as your place of prayer. Is that not right?
Nothing to do with what we're talking about.
It is.
I'm not talking about Umar, I'm talking about Ibn Kathir.
So what I'm explaining is, Ibn Kathir, like any other mufassir, he mentions an ayah and he gives you that which has context, including authentic and including that which is weak. Right? And that is why when we want to study how to implement fiqh, we don't go to Ibn Kathir, right? We go to books of fiqh because you are stuck on one ayah. There are many ayahs, there are many ahadith, and then those books of fiqh look at all of them and they look at the different and they say, okay, this has been reported from a weak chain. What we know from an authentic chain, this is what Umar radiyan did. That's how we bring implementation. But the problem is you don't want to know about how jizya really works. You just want to take jabs.
Go
ahead.
All I'm saying,
so
period, was Ibn Kathir couldn't be saying what you were saying, otherwise he would not have backed it up with that.
He definitely was, and because you don't understand the style of
no way
writing,
he was. There's 0% chance he was.
Have you studied Ibn Kathir?
You have a bunch of his commentaries.
Studying and reading are not the same thing. I think you should know that, right?
Okay.
Have you ever studied Ibn Kathir?
Look, we get down to the exact same problem that keeps coming up over and over again. Namely, we read the Quran,
Okay.
right? We read Surah 9. We get to 929. Fight those who do not believe in Allah. Sure. Hey, that sounds like it's calling on fighting people just because they don't believe in Allah. Sure. You would say no, because it really means fighting these particular people and so on, right? Sure. And so you have to go outside of that to even understand what it's saying. So fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth from among the people of the book, so Jews and Christians, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. That, if I'm reading that, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued, that sounds pretty clear. You fight people until you fight Jews and Christians until they pay the jizya.
So if I'm standing here right now and there's all the Christians and Jews, should I just start going attacking them?
No.
Well, why not?
No.
Why not?
Because there's a
what?
process.
The ayah doesn't mention the process. Where's the process? Where's the process? Read the ayah. Where's the process?
Abrogation's the process.
Oh, now he wants to jump into something else.
No!
You see no,
this?
no.
You're asking how it makes sense to this.
Your hypocrisy has just been
No,
exposed.
your
Hold
hypocrisy
on.
has been exposed.
Hold on.
and it's about to get exposed more.
You mentioned the ayah, and when I told you there are other ayah, there are other ahadith, you told me if I just read the ayah, and this is, but when I asked you the same question, if I just take that ayah as you're reading it, without looking at other ayat, without looking at fiqh, without looking at other hadith, then you would say that just jump out and start attacking these people. And then you were like, no, because there are other ayat. See, this is the hypocrisy. No, this is why we say you don't just take an ayah and then think you know what it means. We go to the people of knowledge, and that's in the Quran. If you don't know, yasal ahlul dhikr. Go to the people of knowledge. When I did that last time with the Bible, then you were like, no, that interpretation, this McCarthy, I don't know McCarthy. This is a hypocrisy, David. Don't be a hypocrite. Be real with me. Hold on. Let me finish. Look, when we look at an ayah of Quran, no doubt we look at those ayahs that are muhkamat, like those ayahs that are very evident, right? And there are those that definitely need the aid of tafsir, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that when you don't know, ask those scholars of knowledge. So if you want to know about jizya in reality and you don't just want to make videos, then come, I will mention to you all of the ayat, all of the ahadith, all of the aqwal, what is sahih from da'if, and the concept will be very clear. But if you don't really want to know, you just want to make videos, you will take one ayah, and then you will say, well, this ayah says this to me, and then when I tell you, should I just implement it, you will say, no, there's abrogation, right? This is a hypocrisy. Don't do that, bro. You want to know about jizya? I'll sit down, I'll explain it to you. All of the ayahs, all of the ahadith. Tafsir ibn Kathir is a great book, but as I said, no doubt, and I said it the first time and I said it again, and this is not throwing Ibn Kathir under the bus, rather saying that no book of tafsir is perfect. That's why we look at different books, we look at the takhrij of ahadith, and we go to those scholars who specialize in the implementation, the fiqh of it, and then we learn looking at all of the ayah. If you take the ayah by itself, then you would be telling me jump out and start attacking these people and taking jizya from them, but you know that that's not what it's about, because there are other ayah. I agree. Just like that, when you talk about jizya, this is one ayah, there are other ayat, there are other ahadith, there are other fiqh from it that then explain the concept.
Okay. Now,
go ahead.
Back to my point. I'll add a little clarification. When we read, fight those who do not believe in Allah, it goes on until they pay the jizya with willing submission, feel themselves subdued. That seems clear as far as the language. And in terms of qualifications, like, oh, it really means people who are fighting you or something like that, then it seems like that should be included in. I agree that you do have to consider other verses, but that's been done.
If you take this ayah by itself, then even what you said would be not clear. Meaning, if you just took this ayah out of context, you just took it out, without looking at historic context, without looking at hadith, then you would say jump out and start attacking these people. But this is why, when you look at jizya and what it's paid for, and what are the services received by those who pay jizya, then the context of all of it becomes clear. So if you did that as well,
but that's the problem I'm talking about, right? Okay. So we read the Quran, right? Okay. And it's not arranged chronologically, of course, but you have these verses like 929, 973, 9123, and so on, which call for fighting people because of their beliefs, right? And you read the context. So you read the verses that come before, the verses that come after, trying to say, okay, what is this? Is there some clarification here or something like that? You also have the greater context of the Quran.
Which surah are we talking about?
I'm saying
Surah Ahzab.
This would apply to anything.
I mean, the ayat you're referencing are about Surah Ahzab, right?
No, Surah At-Tawbah.
Surah At-Tawbah is Surah Ahzab. Miskin.
Ahzab? What's Surah 33?
33. So it's called Tawbah and Ahzab. Got both names.
Surah 33?
Yeah, Surah 33.
Is the same title as Surah 9? I've heard Ahzab and At-Tawbah.
Surah Al-Ahzab.
I've also heard Barak for Surah 9.
Surah At-Tawbah is also regarding the battles, right? We're talking about the battles that happened, right or wrong, right?
I'm just saying.
I'm talking about, sorry.
It's different.
I will get you the name. But okay, so when you look at Surah Tawbah, for example, okay? Surah Tawbah was in the context of a battle, yes or no?
Well, if you go to Ibn Kathir, it's what led up to the battle.
It was in context about what happened in the battle, right?
Yeah, they were calling for battle against the. If you read Ibn Kathir's Sirah, He says that command was given, and then as a result, Muhammad decided to march out and fight the Romans. But the Romans didn't even show up.
You're talking about Tabuk.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're saying is, when you're talking about a surah, you are looking at the context of what it's about.
I agree. Okay. Yeah. So you have. So if you have a verse, right? The first thing is like the immediate context. Verse should come before it or after, and so on. Then you have the greater context of the book, right? And then, in addition to that, you have historical context. Now here's the point, right? I read the verse, and it's wow. That means what it sounds like it means. That's pretty bad, right? So. What do we have in the context? Well, the passage runs from 9:28 to I think 9:33 or something like that. Nothing there that would change the meaning. You have other verses in the Quran which talk more about fighting defensively. Right? You have other passages like that. But when we look at how these are...
But you did agree that Surah Tawbah is about sort of Ahzab. I mean, about the battle with the Romans, right? Tabuk, right? Yeah. What happened in Tabuk?
I think the Muslims went to fight and the Romans were there.
But why did the Muslims go to fight?
Well, according to Ibn Kathir, because of that.
No.
According to Ibn Kathir, here's the context. According to Ibn Kathir in his Sirah, right?
Sure.
So, in 928, the commentary for that was the Muslims were worried because Muhammad said that the pagans can no longer approach the sacred mosque, right? And it says that the Quraysh became concerned that this was going to hinder their profits from trade. We're not going to be earning the same money. People aren't allowed to come here anymore. They might not like us anymore. They're worried that this is going to interfere with their profits from trade.
You're talking about the Quraysh.
That's 928. Yeah, that's after conquering Mecca. So after they convert. So
now
they're worried that this is going to interfere with the profits from trade. So Allah says that He can still enrich them. And then the very next verse, how's Allah going to enrich us? Fight those who do not believe in Allah. Right? And you go through the entire passage. It's we're fighting these people to make money off of them. And at the end of it, he says, therefore, Muhammad marched towards Tabuk to fight the Romans.
Let me explain that to you again. If you had actually looked at books of history in Tabuk, there were attacks on Muslims in Sham. You know about this, right? Nope. What can I do with people?
Let's see where it's at.
All right, so I have a video about Tabuk. Okay. I give all your references in it. Books of history, authentication. Watch it. Right?
I'm interested in that one.
Good.
Send me that link.
I'll send you a link. Okay. You didn't give me your number last time.
If you know the title, then
I'll show it to you on your phone today, so then you can watch. All right. On top of that, you also know that there are authentic reports that there was a Roman army that was being prepared to attack Medina. Right?
No.
So this is the problem. This is the problem.
How have I never seen that one? No, it said there's an army in Syria. They're at war with the Persians. Where is this talking about? Where does it say they were planning to attack Medina?
So if you like Ibn Kathir so much, get Bidayah wa Nihaya. Bidayah wa Nihaya. You never heard of Bidayah wa Nihaya?
No.
I mentioned it to you last time. If you're a good student.
By the way,
my student's not on it.
You're proving my objection with everything you said.
No, I'm not. Let me explain it to you, right? Once again, when I looked at the verses from the Bible, you told me you have to look at context, the old covenant.
I agree. Same thing with the Quran.
Excellent. So, when I look at, for example, here, I'm just going to give you an example, right? Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verse 11. If two men fight together, and the wife of one of them draws near to rescue her husband from the hand of the one attacking him, and puts out her hand and seizes him by the genital, then you shall cut off her hand, and your eye shall not pity her. So if I was to read up and down this verse, in this chapter, I do not find any context other than that that's what we should do, right? But then you will tell me this is the old covenant and the new covenant, and then this writer said this and this, right? So you will take me to other than the chapter itself and the verses around it to explain it to you, right? But when I do the same for you about Quran, the hypocrisy comes out, right? Here, okay, show me here. Why can I not do that today? No, show it to me here.
Do you remember? Do you remember? Because it's in the Quran.
Okay.
Where the Quran quotes a Jewish teaching. Surah 5, verse 32.
Okay.
If anyone kills a man, except for certain things,
That is not
it's
a
as
Jewish
if
teaching.
it's as if
That
he
is
killed
not
him.
a Jewish
It's in the
teaching.
Talmud. It's in the Talmud.
If it's in the
It's a
Talmud,
Jewish teaching. You
let
can say
me
that is
explain.
definitely a Jewish teaching.
Let me explain it. In the
Mishnah
Can I
Sanhedrin,
explain?
chapter 4.
Can I explain?
Okay.
Look, I let you speak. You let me speak. That's the way it works, right? When you say that that ruling can be found in Jewish scriptures, I have no problem with that. But that is a ruling in the Quran.
Yeah, that's not the point. That's not the point. The point was whether you're aware.
Let me finish. In the Quran, that is not taken as a Jewish ruling. That is the hukm of Allah that Allah has ordained upon us. Okay? And we believe in that hukm. Right? You trying to run away from answering the verse now.
I'm willing to answer it. That's part of the. That was to explain it.
Go ahead. But that was a misquote. That was not, that's the ayah in the Quran from Allah, not a Jewish teaching. If they have the same teaching, they have the same Allah that revealed it to them. That's fine.
He quotes it as for the children of Israel. So obviously they had it, and then we open up the Talmud and it's in it.
Again. So that's what I explained to you earlier. That these ayahs are applicable for us as well.
Okay.
So go ahead.
None of that is the point. The point there was the reasoning for Jews behind that. If you kill a man, it's as if you killed all mankind. The rabbis who are commenting on this are saying because you're killing all his future offspring. So they took that very seriously as far as destroying someone's family line. So,
woman and balls.
because if your husband and some other dude are fighting.
Okay.
And you want to, by crushing his testicles.
I didn't say crushing, grabbing. So go ahead. You're making a.
That's what the.
Again. It's
okay.
It's again. He's lying in the Bible now. He's making. See, no, you are lying because listen. Everybody that has a Bible at home. No. You're caught today again, David. Again. No. Everybody that has a Bible at home.
If you grab him by the testicles, could you be destroying his family line?
No, not necessarily.
You can't. Not necessarily.
Deuteronomy. Hold on. Deuteronomy 25:11. Does it say crushing or seizing?
If
you are lying into your own Bible. Read it.
Oh my goodness. If you reach down and grab someone by his testicles in the middle of a fight.
Bro, you were in jail, you did some time, you probably kicked some dude in the nuts before. Doesn't mean you can't have kids anymore. This is a very harsh...
In a fight, you're grabbing him by the testicles.
Are you saying this is applicable today?
No.
Why not? I don't see that in this verse or in this chapter that it's not applicable.
If you read over and over again, it said, and these are the regulations for the children of Israel.
No, but today, the children of Israel, for example, if you're Jewish, can you implement this as a Christian who's Jewish by race?
I would say as a Christian, you should not try to destroy someone's family line.
So then you would you implement this, yes or no?
He's cutting off the hand. No, that's oh my goodness.
Over, bro.
Listen. If you read this, no. If you read this, right? If you read this, they are dividing up the land and giving it as an inheritance, right? These passages are about not screwing up someone's future descendants and inheritance.
Look, I'm reading through this, right? There are many rulings about if you curse your parents, you should be put to death. If a young woman who is a virgin is betrothed to a husband and a man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out of the gate. Hold on.
Look at this. No. Look what we got right here. Muhammad in the Bible.
Sure.
You have Shaykh Uthman here. Let me give you all these messed up.
You're trying to jump.
No. I think it's amazing.
Jump.
No. You jump to this. You jump to this.
This is the same verse.
You're saying this should not be implemented. You're saying this should not be implemented, but you're defending. Look at this. You're quoting Deuteronomy.
Excellent.
You're quoting Deuteronomy, the book you're attacking. Deuteronomy, Genesis, Deuteronomy. This guy loves Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy. Hey, everyone. How do we know Muhammad's a prophet? Because he's in the Bible. What are you going to do here at the Dawah table? Attack the Bible. Can't trust Deuteronomy. We can't trust Deuteronomy. How do we know Muhammad's a prophet? Because he's in Deuteronomy. And they don't get it. This is amazing stuff. All right.
I'll let him speak.
Go ahead and attack the Bible
that
you're defending.
Go ahead, speak. Go
ahead. Attack the Bible that you're defending and that your prophet defended and believed in.
You done?
Yeah.
You are done.
Yeah. Muhammad in the Bible.
He thinks my name is Dr. Jamal Badawi.
You're distributing the tracts. You don't believe in them? You don't believe in the tracts?
I believe in them, but I didn't write it, so don't think that I wrote it. Now hold on. Let me explain this to you now. Go ahead. It's in Spanish. In English? Go for it.
Brief illustrated guide to understanding
Oh,
Islam.
look at him trying to get away from this.
No,
You
no,
think
no,
I'm
no,
gonna
no,
let
no,
you
no, no,
know?
no. I think it's amazing
All right, now,
that you attack the
First
book
thing-
that you're using for your dawah to defend your prophet.
First thing, let me reference this, all right?
Okay.
I personally have not researched enough on the reference to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Bible to be making that claim myself. There are other scholars who have, and they have written on it, and this is for them, and I have no problem with it. That does not mean that we believe everything in the Bible is true. We do believe that some of the true message could be in here, and the Quran is our guide. So we're very clear on that. What I was trying to show you here,
Biblical prophecies.
You see that?
I just
You see
wanted to
that?
check.
You see that?
Biblical
You see that?
prophecies.
You see
Wait,
that?
wait,
He doesn't
wait.
want to
Look
hear
at the
it.
first passage
doesn't
you
wanna hear
quote.
it.
Look at
He
the
doesn't
first
wanna hear
passage.
it. He doesn't
Deuteronomy.
wanna hear it.
You're about to attack Deuteronomy when Deuteronomy is the defense of your prophet.
I am not.
Go ahead, attack Deuteronomy, the book where we find your prophet.
Are you done speaking? See, like I asked you if
This
you're
is
done.
awesome.
I asked you if you're done.
This is awesome.
And he said he's done, but he won't let me speak. Do you notice that? Anybody else?
I notice when Shaykh Uthman gets
right.
nervous, he starts.
Oh, you think I'm nervous?
You better be nervous. You better be nervous. How do we know Muhammad's a prophet? Because he's in the Bible. What book are we attacking? The Bible.
I can tell you're nervous because you're not letting me speak.
No, this is awesome. I wanted to draw attention.
I
to
got
that
you.
point.
I got you.
Because here's what
I got
here's
you.
what I found.
You
Shaykh
are
Uthman.
done.
No, here's what I.
You see, you won't let me speak.
No.
They won't let me
You
speak.
can. I'm trying to.
No,
I'm
you're
trying
not
to
letting me
explain why I'm
speak.
going here.
You're going on, and every time I speak, you interrupt me and bring new things. You're not letting me speak because you know that you're done.
What do you mean done? You're about to
let
attack
me
a
explain.
book that we are both required to believe
Let
in.
me speak.
Okay. Go ahead. Tell us about Deuteronomy.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, when we talk about the Bible, and I've said this repeatedly, no doubt there's going to be some things in it, like for example the commandment not to worship idols and things that we believe would be from God, and the judge there is the Quran. But no doubt, from the Quran and from what we believe and from what you know in your heart, there are things that have been changed. False. So, hold on, let me finish now. Let me finish. So, for me to say that there is a reference to something that should bring your attention to in the Bible, for example, not worshiping idols and so on, does that mean that I take all of the Bible to be preserved? And I've explained this, but somehow you didn't get it. No, I'm not done. Hold on, put it away, bro.
Contradicting your God and your prophet again, man.
I'm gonna speak, bro. I'm gonna
You are
speak.
annihilating your God right now.
I'm gonna speak. Nobody can align my God. Right? Now, the reason you're jumping here is because you're caught. Now, you're here in the verses, in the context that we're looking at. I'm not attacking these. All I asked you as a Christian is, should we implement these today? They are in the Bible, that if two men fight and a woman seizes, not crushes, the balls of another, protecting her husband's life, her hand should be cut off and no eye should pity her. But you couldn't answer that, so you try to jump.
I said no. It should not.
Well,
be
why
implemented.
not?
We're not under that law system.
But where does it say that in the verses?
Have you read the rest of the Bible?
Oh,
Go to
exactly.
Jeremiah
You
31.
see that
It talks
now?
about
You
your
see that now?
covenant.
When I was telling you about the ayah, hold on. When I was telling you about the ayah, you told me I read the verses before it and after it, and when I told you about other ayat, you were like, that's the problem, is you keep telling me you gotta look at other ayat and other hadith and other.
I did not. I agreed with you. I agreed with you.
Here, hold on. But here in the Bible,
Now you're just lying
in
about
the
it.
Bible, I am not. It's on tape. Don't worry about it, bro. That's a good thing about recording.
I said you go to the other verse. I said you have the close context and you have the wider context. You go to the entire book. And I said you got the historical
So when
context.
I talked
So
about
I said there's all
Jizya,
three contexts.
so when I talked about Jizya, and I talked about the other ayat and the context from the ahadith and what Umar Khattab did, you told me that's a problem with Islam. It's on tape. It's on tape. You're like, because every time I read an ayat, then you tell me look at other ayat. But when I tell you from the Bible,
either you misunderstood me, or I was not clear enough. The point I was making, right? You take a verse. You've got a verse there. Verse sounds clear.
Sure.
Right? So you'd want to
Just like the Bible.
Yeah, you'd want to examine the context,
Sure.
examine what the meaning of that is.
Excellent.
You'd examine all of that if you're saying, is this something that applies today?
Sure.
Same thing with the Quran, right?
Okay.
Same thing with the Quran.
Excellent.
Here's a verse. Is this something that applied to a particular people or at all
That's
times?
what I
and so
said.
on? Yeah. I've still never gotten to the actual point. The actual point is, so you have passages like, to you be your religion, to me be my religion, or passages about fighting in self-defense if someone is persecuting Muslims and so on. And then you get to things like fight those who do not believe in Allah. Right?
So you look at the context.
You do, absolutely. The problem is when you try to arrange these, you can go to the Darus Salam edition of Sahih al-Bukhari. Go all the way to the very end. So book 9 of Sahih al-Bukhari. You have this essay on how to bring these together by what's his name, Abu Humayd or Ibn Humayd. You heard of him? He was the Chief Justice of Saudi Arabia and the Imam at the Grand Mosque and so on. Okay. So it's Ibn Humayd or Abu Humayd.
Bukhari was like way before that time, right?
Yeah, we're not talking about
Sahih Bukhari.
He makes an attempt to explain how these passages tie together.
Which passage are you talking about?
The passages of the Quran.
Which
like 973, 9123.
So this is not in Bukhari then. This is probably like a publisher's note.
I promise you I'll make my point. I'm making a point here. But you're interrupting before I even made a point.
No, I just want to understand.
I'll explain that. So he's taking all these passages and he's basically answering the question, how do we reconcile all these different claims? Because you have some claims where, hey, you be your religion, to you be your religion and to me be my religion. These other passages fight those who do not believe in Allah, right? And he puts down he arranges things in 4 stages, right? He says there's a stage where Muslims weren't supposed to fight back. They weren't even supposed to fight in self-defense, right? And then he says, but then, after the move to Medina, then they were permitted to fight in self-defense if people are persecuting them and so on.
So
and
like
then
Badr.
he says,
well, I'm trying to understand. Badr in Medina.
I'm guessing he would include Badr in that, right? No. He might include that in stage 3. So stage 2.
Very early on.
Stage 2, it's where Muslims are permitted to fight. Then stage 3 was where they had to fight if they're being attacked. They had to fight.
Shows your ignorance because the first law of allowance to fight came in Badr.
Okay, so the 3rd stage is. Fighting is obligatory, right? You have to fight in self-defense. And then the 4th stage he puts is offensive jihad, where you have to actually go out and fight and subjugate people, right? Okay. So that's how he arranges those. That makes perfect sense to me. So here's the issue, right? Here's the issue. We read the Quran verse. That sounds like it's calling to fight, right? But guess what? You can have all kinds of things and all kinds of books that sound like they're calling to fight. You got to read them in context. So you have an actual very respected scholar who's putting the essay. Abu Humayd, the Chief Justice of he was the Chief Justice of Saudi Arabia, 80s, 90s. No, you're missing.
What happened to Shaykh bin Baz?
No. Dude, you're missing. You're completely misunderstanding.
You know who Shaykh bin Baz is?
You're completely
misunderstanding. You know who Shaykh bin Baz is?
You're either deliberately misunderstanding.
Listen. The Chief Justice of Saudi Arabia in the 80s and 90s is Shaykh bin Baz.
We'll just look up Ibn Humayd after this. Okay.
So let's look up. Go. But let me
finish one. So he says, how do we reconcile this? That's the conclusion that he comes to. That's the conclusion he comes to.
Sure.
I look at the same passages. That makes perfect sense to me, right?
Okay.
And so once you have that timeline, then there's basically one more question about how you would apply that. Right? Go for it. And the question is, once you've gone through these 4 stages, are you just in stage 4 and then that's stage 4 forever? So fighting.
So why didn't you ask this?
Yeah. No. So
I'm here to help you, bro. You said I'm your favorite Shaykh, but
you're the one who. By the way, this is all a response to something you brought up.
Hold on. Let me
finish. I'm almost done. You're talking 30 seconds, right? So, 1, do these 4 stages apply in such a way that once you've reached stage 4, the other 3 stages do not apply? That's the question.
No problem.
Or is this contextual? In other words, Muslims who are in sort of a situation like Muhammad was in Mecca, where he's totally outnumbered, and therefore you're not fighting back, would be under that sort of rule.
Sure.
I can see that, right? So that, as far as why you should not be running around implementing Surah 9, verse 29, I would interpret it because you're more in the situation of Muhammad in Mecca.
But you're not a scholar to interpret it, so I don't know why you're coming up with your interpretation.
I'm giving you his interpretation.
No, you are. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. You are giving, David Wood are interpreting when you shouldn't.
Okay, and By the way, here's the entire point.
I gave you more than 30 seconds.
Here's the overall. Here's the big. Then you respond. Here's the overall entire point. The point is, read the Quran. Get all these verses. How do we reconcile them? Oh, here's a good way to reconcile them. Now it all makes sense. Now it all makes sense. But that doesn't look good. Fight those who do not believe in Allah means that once you get in a certain situation where you're the most powerful force, you violently subjugate people, force them to pay jizya, impose conditions on them, and so on, or you keep fighting them until they're not, until they're gone or something like that, right?
Okay.
So that's what it looks like. And then even with the hadith, with Muhammad saying, I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger and so on, that all fits into that. And here's the point. Even if that's completely wrong, even if that is completely wrong, to say, well, you're wrong about that, and therefore you need to go to all these different scholars. You got to go to all these different scholars and consult all these different scholars to figure this out. You're talking about passages that are calling for violence against other people, calling for the violent subjugation of the world when you read them like that, right? And in order to figure out what Allah is really saying, you have to do all these, decades of research.
I did not say that.
So the problem is, which we always come back to, the Quran claims to be clear. The Quran claims to be clear. We open it. Well, we got some problem on understanding these verses. How do we reconcile them? Well, you reconcile them in a way that constantly escalates the violence. And if that's wrong, how do you know what you're supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to spend a lot of time going to all these scholars, but that means that it's just not clear. So we're not talking about reading the context or reading the entire book. You have to go outside of the book, and then when you get to the hadith, then you have to go to the outside of the hadith, and you have to go to all these scholars. But that is a lot of work to understand who I'm supposed to kill and who I'm not supposed to kill. You know what I mean?
Are you done?
I'm done.
You are done. Now, as I said, you know that I'm not nervous because I let you speak respectfully. And you know you are nervous because you keep interrupting me. So let's see if you interrupt me now. Let's try it now, right? So, now, as I told you from the beginning, the Quran clearly tells you, if you don't know, ask those who know. I didn't tell you you have to go and do tens and years of research. All you got to do is go to somebody who is learned, who is scholarly, who has knowledge, and say, Shaykh, I read this ayah, I read this hadith, what is the context? How do we implement it?
What verse is that?
Hold on.
No, just what verse is that?
Everybody knows the ayah.
No, what verse is that?
Look up the ayah.
I was thinking 21:7. Hang on.
Okay, so can I finish now?
I just want to make sure that you're presenting that correctly. But you can go ahead. I'm just going to look it up.
The ayah. If you don't know, ask those who know. We memorize the ayat. We don't really look at it. So can I continue, or is your nervousness not letting me speak?
No.
I
just want to make sure.
So as I said earlier, and I continued saying, and you're still not listening, that the Quran gives you the solution from all this confusion, which is when you don't know something, you don't have to go and study yourself for 10 and 15 and 20. I never said that. You put that in my mouth. What I said is you go to the people of knowledge and ask them.
So not to Allah.
Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you to do that. Right? So just like when I asked you about the Bible, you told me read the rest of the Bible, and you told me that this covenant was explained by this, and this by this, and this scholar said this. In that way, when we as Muslims read an ayah, we don't assume from it without understanding the fiqh of it. Okay? That's why we go as students of knowledge to shuyukh, and they spend years, 20, 30, 40 years studying all the texts. But not every Muslim has to. Rather, when you go to the scholars, they, having dedicated that life, will explain to you the answer in 2 minutes. If you, David Wood, had just come to me and said, explain to me jizya, then I could sit with you and give you all the different ayat, all the different ahadith, all the different aqwal, and in a few minutes you would have had your answers. But you didn't want the answer, you just wanted to make videos. If you wanted to know about fighting in Islam, we have whole abwab, whole chapters on jihad and qital, that bring all those verses and all those ahadith that explain what's nasikh, what's mansukh, what's early, what's later, right? So that's not an issue. What you're doing is instead of looking at the fiqh The implementation, you're trying to go to these verses, and you are not looking up these verses randomly. You are getting these in order to attack, and then you're digging from there.
You wouldn't do that, right?
I got you. I would not.
You would not go to the Bible and
would
use
not.
verses to attack, right?
Again, once again.
By the way,
hold on.
No, I just want to know, is that the verse you were quoting with the ask those who possess the message. So the dhikr.
Yeah.
The dhikr. That's the one you're quoting?
Yes.
Well, this is talking about. Isn't this talking about Christians and Jews?
It is not.
Before thee, also, the messengers.
See how he's trying to change the subject now?
No. I think this is
Can I
important.
finish what I'm saying, and then I'll explain the ayah to you?
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you. And this is the Yusuf Ali translation? Seriously? You use the Yusuf Ali translation?
You don't like it?
Yusuf Ali was Ismaili, you know that, right?
I believe Hilleli Khan actually says this is talking about Jews and Christians here. Or he says the previous scriptures.
So get
Hilleli Khan?
Get Hilali. I mean, here, look at Mustafa Khattab here. What's the... Bring it up here.
21:7. Whose one is this?
I have no idea.
Go ahead. Finish the point.
So, let's get back to the point.
I can listen and
when
look up
you
around.
talk about the 4 stages that you're speaking about, which is not in Sahih al-Bukhari itself, you're talking about somebody's commentaries.
I know.
Right?
It's how he's making sense of all of this.
Sure. So let me explain this to you. No doubt there was a time when fighting was forbidden, right? And then a time came when fighting was allowed, right? And then the time came that fighting was implemented against certain situations. But if you want to know whether these are stages that cannot go backwards and cannot reconcile between the stages, then the easy thing is to see how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with it. Are there Christians and Jews and tribes that Rasulullah ﷺ continue to have treaties with? Are there those that the Khulafa in the time of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, Ali radiallahu anhum, continue to have trade with, for example from Sham, and they were not being attacked, right? And are those, like in Tabuk for example, where they were attacked, and what was the context of what was going on when they were attacked? What are the rules and regulations of difa'? For example, are you paying attention to what I'm saying, or you're
I'm paying attention.
smirking away, right? In difa', when you are attacked, for example, there is no need for an amir, right? You defend yourself. But offensive jihad, one of the conditions is that you have to have an amir, a Muslim leader that unites and brings the Muslims together for offensive jihad, right? So, if you're in a time where you don't have such an amir, you cannot initiate an offensive jihad, right? Even though you are past the 4th stage. You understand what I'm saying? For offensive jihad, there are different rulings, different amounts of time to give, certain conditions that are done. And even in that time, there is the ability for the Khalifa to make pacts with people, peace treaties with people. Understand? If you look at Abbasiyya and Umayyah and others, they made treaties with other...
I'm not objecting, just clarification. Do you believe there can be another caliph now?
Why not?
Okay, just asking. How? Yeah, I don't want to sidetrack, but how would that happen? Would that be like scholars decide on one?
I mean, not just scholars, but the Muslim Ummah would come and give bay'ah to a person, and you know, as a consensus to come with one leadership. And we hope Allah will give us a Khalifa soon. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now do you understand about the 4 stages, or you just didn't pay attention during that part?
I understand completely. I just disagree, and it wasn't really my point.
What did you disagree with when I said?
The point I'm making. If I were to go to, I'm really confused about these passages. Let me go to a scholar.
Yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
What if the scholar tells me, yeah, you have these 4 stages, and once you reach stage 4, then there's this.
Sure.
I go to a different scholar, and he says, what? That's nonsense. What are you talking about?
Easy answer for you. Just like a Christian. If I went to a Christian preacher and he told me that God made people in His image, and that's why God was white, and black people aren't a part of God, and whatever, or the Christian pastor here in California that was saying that the pulse shooting was a good thing and gays should be shot and so on. As a Christian, he may be a pastor, but you would say, does that come in line with what he's presenting from the biblical scriptures? So we as Muslims say, Zin bil kitab wa sunnah. Oh, no, listen now, bro.
No,
when a scholar gives you...
You just reached the problem.
When a scholar gives you clear evidences from the Quran and Sahih Ahadith, then that's a scholar you should follow. When a scholar misinterprets Quran and you can see the evidence is being presented, but I'll give you an example. Let's say a scholar tells you, light this guy on fire, right? And I tell you, David, don't do it, bro, because Rasulullah ﷺ forbid punishing with the fire, right? So now, which scholar are you going to listen to?
Allah is the one who punishes with fire,
right? Sure. Yeah. So now, which scholar should you listen to?
The one who can back it up.
There you go.
But that means it comes down to the sources. The problem is when we're reading the sources.
Of course, but the difference is the scholar understands the different sources, different ayat, and brings them together to explain it to you. You, David Wood, are just Googling one ayah, not understanding the rest, and trying to make your own interpretation.
You're acting like this is me. You're acting like this is me. When I'm so for example, in this Surah 21 verse 7, right? So you got Yusuf Ali. Before the apostles we sent were but men. Yeah. I'm giving that as an example. Before the apostles we sent were but men, to whom we granted inspiration. If you realize this not, ask of those who possess the message. Then you read the Hilali Khan, and we sent not before you, O Muhammad, but men to whom we inspired. So ask the people of the reminder, the scriptures, the Torah and the gospel, if you do not know. So here, here's the point. This is Hilali and Khan, and they're saying what this verse is talking about is asking Jews and Christians who have their book. Right? So if it's not, that's the point. If it's not what that means, who in the world am I supposed to listen to here?
Let me tell you.
Okay, good.
Is Hilali or Yusuf Ali your person you have asked?
No,
it is not. Yeah, you just Google it, right?
No, I went to their translation. That's right there.
Yeah. You Googled it, right? You
I did not Google it at all.
Okay, so you looked it up on the internet, right?
Yeah, that's what it says in the Quran. Pull it up.
This is not asking a teacher. This is you, again, going in, looking at one verse and thinking you understand it, right? If you had asked a scholar, then I would have told you, or I'm a student of knowledge, but a scholar would have told you that this ayah, in the explanation from the Sahaba themselves who were there, explained that no doubt that the people of scripture had a knowledge about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's why many of them became Muslim. But this ayah is applicable for us as well, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word dhikr. You know what dhikr means?
Reminder.
Right, but what is dhikr in the Quran? Inna anzalnahu.
Right there, it applied to the earlier scriptures.
Right, but this is the Quran making tafsir of the Quran, if you understand, right? The word dhikr has been used for the Quran itself.
And for the Torah and the Gospel.
Right, exactly. Okay. Why? Because part of the wahi, right? So under that, the Quran and what is preserved, if we had, from the earlier scriptures, the hadith that is a part of the wahi, those scholars that are well versed in the dhikr, then they are the ones you should ask. So today, if you go to a scholar who is well versed in the Quran, in the Hadith, then this ayah is as applicable to us as it was to those that I was talking about earlier, that if you knew, then you should have looked at the scriptures which mentioned the Prophet ﷺ and accepted it, right? But this ayah is not nasikh or mansukh. Right? This is where the muhkam, the ability to give hukam, continues. Now, if you ask a scholar today who is well versed in the dhikr, in the Quran, in the Hadith, then they can give you references and explain the concept. No problem, it's very easy. But instead of going to that route, I want to look up this ayah and think that I know what it means. I want to look up this hadith, whether it's strong or weak, and think what it means. Why not just come and say, hey, I want to understand the concept of jizya from a fiqh perspective. So looking at all of the ayat, looking at all of the hadith, the research that we've already put in, sit down and explain it to you. But you don't want the answer, right?
It doesn't work at all.
Why does it not work?
Because I come to you. Explain this to me. Sure. I get a different explanation from the one that I get from Ibn Kathir.
Ibn Kathir is not your teacher.
You go to, you look up.
Again,
you look up.
No, hold on. Ibn Kathir,
he wrote books. He wrote books to give his book.
I know,
his views, right?
He was not explaining fiqh here. He was explaining an ayah and things that are related. It was not in the implementation. It's not a big book of fiqh. So instead of going to, you didn't go to any other Islamic scholar and ask this question. You went and tried to make your own interpretation based on Ibn Kathir or whatever else. Here,
you brought it up.
I gave you the answer, right? I gave you the other ayat, other ahadith, but then you didn't like that. You want to continue to make your videos, right? But what I'm saying is, why not come and ask? If you don't want to ask me, not me, go ask another scholar. Sit down with a scholar, a qualified Islamic scholar, and say, I want to understand the ahkam of qital. In our time, what are the ahkam of qital? And a scholar will say, this ayah, this ayah, this ayah, this ayah, this ayah, this hadith, this hadith, this hadith. You don't have to do that research. That's what a scholar does. And with all of that, he'll give you a clear answer.
No.
But you don't want a clear answer.
No.
This is the same
That's
as
not- that's not what
exactly.
happens.
Yeah.
No, no,
I said,
no.
you don't want a clear answer. He goes, no, I don't want a clear answer.
Let me give you an example, right? So you take a verse like no compulsion.
Truth comes out, bro.
You take
Truth
a
comes
verse.
out, whether
You
you
take a
like it or
verse
not.
like no compulsion in religion.
Sure.
You go to something like
A scholar.
Tafsir Qurtubi.
No, again,
Tafsir Qurtubi.
instead of going to a scholar, you're going to Qurtubi, which
Notice,
you don't
you
understand.
can never read about Islam. You can't just read the
can,
Quran,
you
read
can.
the
No,
Hadith,
no,
read the Sirah,
Just-
read the commentaries.
just-
You'll only be
just-
misled. You
just
have to go to a
like-
person. You have to just go to a person
when
to tell you.
I mentioned about the Bible, you told me you got to look at other verses and other that. You can't just read the Bible. You
I
can.
agree, but you're not telling me to read other verses of the Quran. You're telling me I have to go to a person.
I am. But what I'm saying is, if you're willing to dedicate years and years of research, looking at all the different issues, I have no problem with that. But as a student
It
of
shouldn't
knowledge-
take
hold
years
on.
and years of research
Hold
to
on.
figure out what
Hold
this
on.
verse is saying.
Hold on. Listen. You're talking about a whole system of life. You're talking about a penal code.
No,
You're-
I'll be talking about a verse. Like,
but-
what does this
but-
verse
but-
say?
But again, the Quran is not just one verse, right? You're talking about something that has the rules and regulations of war. You're talking about those stories of the past, of the future, about prayer and fasting, about dealing with your neighbors. All of that, no doubt, if you want to start implementing it, requires scholarly work. Right? There are ulama from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Mas'ud, there were the scholars amongst the Sahaba. And when a companion didn't understand the ayah, he would go to them. That's why Rasulullah ﷺ said, take the Quran from Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'b and others, right? So you would go to them. And then when they would ask, then they would explain it not from their own interpretation, from the other ayat of Quran, looking at context, looking at hadith, they would give an answer. Today, for example, if you want to get a medical question answered, you have no problem going to a doctor. You don't say, why can't I just pick up Grey's Anatomy and make my own insertion into my liver, right? But no doubt the hereafter and Islamic laws is something that's complicated because you're implementing. If you just want to read for your own spiritual benefit, read the Quran all you want. But if you want to implement Islamic jihad laws or
There's no
hudud,
scenario where I want to
or
implement
hudud,
this stuff.
then you need
I want to
go-
understand it.
Okay, if you want to understand it, excellent. So when you want to understand the rules and regulations of jihad and jizya and things, you need to go to those who are experts in it. Just like if you want to understand legal system in America, you don't just pick up the Constitution and go, to me 2B means this. No, you go to a legal expert to understand it. Just like the Bible. If you want to understand the Bible, we have people like McCarthy and others who write these. But you even told me, McCarthy, when I pointed out from McCarthy, you were like, that's just one guy. You threw him under the bus. But you would go to a Christian and ask, hey, is this applicable today or not? Is this a proverb? Is this a simile? Is this Jesus giving a direct ruling? Or is this something that has a different meaning? Just like that. But you don't want to give the same courtesy to Islam because David Wood just wants to make videos.
Wrong. So, and I know we have to be wrapping up here, but
We do, yeah.
just to explain my perspective here, right? So, back to what I mentioned earlier. And this is not to belabor this particular point, but it's if I were to look it up in the tafsir of Qurtubi, so on, and look up this verse. He gives, according to this guy, and this guy, it means this.
Exactly.
According to this guy, and this guy,
Perfect
it means something.
example.
It
Thank
means
you.
something completely different.
Thank you.
According to this guy, and this guy, but he's quoting Muhammad's companions and all these other guys who are giving all of these different interpretations.
Exactly.
Right? So here's the thing. The idea that
you just nailed your coffin right now.
idea that the further you go back in time, the less they know. To where
not true.
Muhammad's companions are walking around, the verse means this, and someone else says, no, it doesn't mean that, it means this, and they're giving completely different interpretations. They're applying completely different hadiths to the situation. They're saying in the historical context for this one was this one. The other one says no, the historical context was that.
Excellent.
If there's that much confusion back then, the idea, I'm just going to go to a scholar, all the scholar could possibly do is explain why there's so much confusion.
Nope.
Unless everyone back then except one particular
I got you.
interpretation
I got you. Go
had
ahead.
it correct. And anyway, here's the point.
That wasn't the point?
I read a verse. I read a verse of the Quran. I read a verse of the Quran. That sounds like this. Let me look it up. So I look it up in the commentaries, and I find that according to Muhammad's companions, they didn't agree on it. There's all these different interpretations. Right? So I go around, look at the relevant hadiths, and you get different interpretations of the verse. And your solution is, well, you have to go to a guy. The problem is, I could go to a guy who favors this guy in the commentaries more than this other guy. And so I'm still going to get, you're acting like if I go to scholars today, I'm going to get this consensus opinion on what this verse means. And I know enough to know that that is not true.
You don't.
I do.
Let me explain to you why. Okay, let me tell you now. Okay.
All scholars agree
speaking?
on 929.
Are you done speaking?
Go.
Are you done speaking, bro?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thank you for nailing your coffin. Let me explain.
Most confusing religion ever.
It is not.
It sure is.
Confusing because of the lack of your ability to understand one simple concept.
When no one could agree on what any of these things mean, but it's not confusing.
You see how he doesn't let me speak?
Perfectly
clear.
You see that?
All your audience, let him see
perfectly clear.
How I quietly listen to him because I'm not nervous, but this nervous guy, he keeps interrupting me because he knows he nailed his coffin.
Talking for 5 minutes and not getting to his point.
Well, because you're not letting me speak. Now, when we go back to Qurtubi, there are riwayat there that are authentic. There are riwayat there that are da'if, that are weak. So this is the job of scholars. Qurtubi, Tabari, Ibn Kathir, they collected all of this. Tabari, many of the riwayat he collected, he himself says this is weak. Ibn Kathir as well. These are jami' tafasir. These are tafasir that put together the bigger picture for scholars to go and look at research. But the problem is David Wood is too ignorant to understand.
I'm a horrible, evil person.
Let me finish.
Who gets confused when I get 10 different interpretations of the same verse.
Let me finish. When you look at 10 interpretations, the reason you're confused because you don't have enough knowledge or enough sense to ask a scholar. The scholars, what they do, like my teacher, Shaykh Abdul Salam, he has a book of tafsir where he brings those interpretations and says this narration is da'if, it's weak. This is why it's weak. Its chain is weak. Qurtubi mentions it, but it's da'if. Ibn Kathir mentions it, but it's da'if. At-Tabari mentions it, but it's weak. And then here is what is authentic. What you should have done is started with a simpler tafsir, like for example tafsir Sa'di, which only gives one opinion. He does not give all these other opinions, which many of the scholars...
I want to know all the opinions.
Excellent, but then you are not qualified enough to know the weak from the strong, right? Do you know Ilm al-Rijal? You don't, because you don't. Do you?
If you're saying that Muhammad's companions.
Again, you're saying this.
We're getting this wrong.
You're saying this again,
this
and
wrong.
I've explained this. That it's not that the Muhammad's companions sallallahu alaihi wasallam are wrong. It's because many of those narrations are weak in their chain.
People were lying about them.
They were not lying. Again,
they weren't lying.
There is a
They're
difference.
not making them up.
There's a difference between kadhab, a lie, and a da'if hadith. Right? But when something is not authentically established, we don't rely upon them. You understand? It's not that the companion is lying. It's that people make mistakes. People like yourself.
It's a lot of mistakes.
People, you make more mistakes than them, so don't get carried away. You took.
I don't think so. I don't come up with 10 different interpretations of a single verse.
You took Ibn Abbas's narration of one ayah and plugged it somewhere else, right?
No, I didn't. Muslims did.
No.
So they made a mistake.
Who made that website? You don't know.
You're the one who told me it's a Shia. You told me it's a Shia website.
Because of the name, right?
And his conspiracy theory is that it's actually atheists.
Listen, I didn't make that claim. It could be. Okay. But you're making a claim it's Muslims without knowing. This is your false assumption, right? But that ayah has not been explained by Ibn Abbas. You falsified that by misreading a website. Now, like that, there are other people, these guys. By trusting somebody you don't know, which is funny.
Qurtubi is making the mistake of trusting all these different commentators.
No.
But
notice,
if Qurtubi gives 10 interpretations, and these are all traced back to Muslim scholars, right? If he gives 10 interpretations and 9 of them are wrong,
sure.
That means that the false information and the mistakes are massively outnumbering.
Let me explain this again.
The truth.
When there are 10 narrations, there will not be 10 different opinions. It will be one will say, for example, it's Makki, one will say it's Madni. One will say this is for this ayah, this is for this ayah, right? So it's not like there are 10 different interpretations, but there may be weak narrations. Qurtubi, Tabari, these are research level books. These are not supposed to be just for people like yourself who don't know Sahih from Da'if, that go and think they know.
So I can't go read those books. I can't read the Quran because I misunderstand it. I can't read the Hadith, I'll just misunderstand it. I can't read the commentaries because it's too advanced.
Read the Quran all you want. Read the Hadith all you want. But when you don't know, ask those who know. That's why you should have a teacher. That's why you should have shuyukh who dedicate their life to understand what is strong from weak. Because what happens when you don't, like Christianity today, when you get 3 Christians, you get 4 different Christian beliefs because everybody wants to make up their own beliefs.
Now he's attacking
right?
Christianity.
No, I'm giving an example to understand, right? But in Islam, alhamdulillah, Allah protected the Quran. One, with the Arabic language, so we can learn it and understand it, so we can know the meanings of words.
You can't know it.
Yes, we can. Secondly, we have alhamdulillah the Quran that explains the Quran. We have ayat that make tafsir of ayat. Alhamdulillah, there are things where there are clear, sahih, authentic ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that explain the ayah. There are authentic narrations from Sahaba and Tabi'un and the ulama of Islam that took these, right?
They can't even agree on the meaning of a word.
They do. The problem
No, they
is,
don't.
Let me finish.
I'm saying no, they don't.
Let me finish. Right? When you look at the meanings of words, Jami' al-Tafasir will give you everything that is reported, right? But no, for example, no scholar in Islam says Qul huwallahu ahad doesn't mean that Allah is one. Right? No scholar does that, right? Rather, they come to a consensus, ijma', and much of tafsir is bil ijma', is by consensus. And kutub of tafsir explain that. But your problem is you don't want to ask somebody who knows. You want to go and read here and read there, misunderstanding those ayat and then try to implement it. It's very simple. Very simple.
The most confusing religion out there.
The people of knowledge. Is that difficult for you? Well, let me slow it down. Ask the people of knowledge.
And if I go,
you want me to sign language for you?
If I go to Maliki, Maliki scholar, I go to a Maliki scholar, Hanafi scholar.
You think Malikis and Hanafis have difference in tafsir? That's how ignorant you are?
Whoa. Well, you're the one talking about implementation.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about executing apostates,
excellent.
They do have differences. They do.
What's the Maliki opinion? Can you name me one Maliki fiqh book? Name one Maliki fiqh book. You will win right now. Name one Maliki fiqh book.
Look, I think
name one Maliki fiqh book. Just one.
Let me break this down.
Name to me one Maliki fiqh book.
Not the point. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
He doesn't know.
You tell me if I'm wrong.
He doesn't know a single. Okay.
Name me. Notice he just dodged this.
No, I'm not. I'm showing your ignorance.
Am I right or wrong?
Name me one Shafi'i fiqh book.
Just answer
Name me one Hanafi fiqh book.
I can't.
Name me one Hanbali fiqh book. Name me one Zahiri fiqh book. You don't know a single fiqh book's name.
He knows what the issue is coming. He knows what the issue is coming.
Go ahead, bring it.
You go to one of these schools.
Okay.
It says that if you're going to execute someone for apostasy,
okay,
you have to give them a waiting period.
Okay.
A certain number of days, right?
All
3 days or something like that,
okay.
Right? No, some of them say you don't have to. I would have to look it up. You know,
look it up where?
You know I'm right.
Look it up where? No, you're not right.
I made my video on this 10 years ago.
All of the madahib agree
that you have to.
You're going to. You have to. You have to give that person a chance.
So if I quote someone who says otherwise,
listen.
Don't they disagree as well on whether female apostates are to be executed or not?
Let me explain.
Is there a disagreement among the 4 schools? Is there a disagreement among the 4 schools on whether female apostates are killed like male apostates?
Not mu'tamidan, right? But you don't even know what that means, so I got to explain it to you.
Explain it.
When you say a Shafi'i book, or a Maliki book, or a Hanafi book, or a Hanbali book, or a Zahiri book, many scholars, thousands or hundreds of thousands within that madhab wrote books. Many of them were wrong about things. Many of them
scholars got it wrong.
Yeah, people.
Man, I'm glad I didn't go to those scholars.
I'm glad that you think that Christian scholars never get anything wrong, right?
I'm glad I didn't go to those scholars.
Gotcha.
I'm glad I didn't go to those scholars because the only place you can go to understand what the Quran is saying is to a scholar, but they'll give you a different interpretation.
You're saying Christian scholars never get anything wrong?
Christian scholars get all kinds of things.
You're done. Wallahi, you're done.
If you have a verse that is commanding me how to act in the world.
Christian scholars never get anything wrong. Is that true?
No.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go to those scholars, right?
Look. He's interpreting. You're interpreting.
Now, let me explain the point.
Hang on. You're interpreting me as saying that Muslim scholars can get something wrong. Shame on me because I would. No.
Muslim scholars
absolutely not. I'm saying if you're claiming. You're acting like there's this consensus. You pick a scholar,
on certain issues. On certain issues, there are ijma. On certain issues, there is ijma. Certain issues, there is khilaf.
Yes.
We study those. Now let me explain the madahib.
Yes.
Let me benefit you by letting you learn something.
10 minutes straight. I'll keep this
short. I
short.
wasn't even done. You interrupted me.
I'll keep this short.
You interrupted me.
I'll keep this short.
You always say that and then you go on.
I'll keep it very short.
Go ahead, bro. I got you.
Keep this very short. So, in Christianity, there are consensus issues. In Islam, there are consensus issues. Right?
Agree.
When we look up the issues where there are disagreements in Islam, it's things like fight those who do not believe in Allah,
and
how to carry out apostasy laws.
You think all those crusades and all those battles for the cross weren't under the Bible?
They're not getting that from there.
They didn't use the Bible to justify crusades? Oh!
No!
You're as ignorant of history as you are of Islam.
What are they using?
Excellent.
What verse are they using?
I'll tell you what. Hold on.
Hold on.
Love
your enemies.
that's what the Crusaders said when they raped, massacred with the cross.
I'm saying, where
love
did
your enemies,
I'm
right?
saying, where did they get it from?
Excellent. Do this when you go home. Look up the Pope's writings using the Bible to justify. Yes.
What verse? Give me a verse that you can use.
Look, I am not the one that studies the Bible or the Popes. I didn't come with that claim.
You spend every week attacking the Bible. You can't give me one verse that could be used to justify the Crusades?
Look, there are plenty of verses that they have used.
Just one. I want one. One verse that would actually, in context from a scholar, be used to justify.
You want just the verse? No problem. I got you. Unlike you, I don't Google things. I look up the actual books. It'll take me a minute.
I'm waiting. You're in the wrong section.
No, I'm not.
Looking for Luke 19:27? Try that one.
Luke 19:27.
You got it highlighted.
Right, I do. But bring here those enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them and slay them before me. Can this verse not be used to slaughter people?
Thank you. If anyone.
Thank you.
If you think people can be that sloppy, because what happens when you read it in context?
Oh, now we need. Okay. So now.
That's a perfect example.
Excellent.
You go to Luke 19:27. You start reading at verse 12.
Okay.
Jesus is telling a story. He tells a story about a king.
And what's the point of the story?
Away.
To give you a lesson.
No, it's to use your talents.
The story is not to give you a lesson.
It's not a command.
And why? Listen. When you have
it's the king in the story who says
I got you.
Okay.
But when you give stories, you are giving your disciples a lesson. And if you're saying that no Christian has ever used this verse,
show me one.
Sure, we'll look it up.
A Christian would have to be the biggest idiot in all of history.
There are plenty of big idiot Christians, bro. There are plenty of big idiot Christians. You know that.
You know that's true. But we're not talking about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hitler quoted Bible verses in his speeches. Is that not true?
Yeah, he also said he preferred Islam to Christianity.
But he did quote biblical verses to promote his genocide.
Is he a scholar?
So are there Christians?
Is he a scholar?
Are there Christians who use biblical verses to massacre and kill? You have just proven yourself to be wrong. Thank you very much, David Wood, for coming out.
Absolutely not. You're talking about consensus of scholars, and you name a bunch of people who aren't scholars.
Look.
Following what you said, any random person who picks up a Bible.
You said that a Muslim who just picks up the Quran can misunderstand these ayat.
I agree.
And I told you that the same is true for the Bible, and you said, show me a verse that a Christian could pick up and read and misuse it to kill people. I showed it to you, and you admitted on camera that a person who believed in Jesus, according to his own admission,
any literate person who reads that sees that it's a story. He literally starts.
Go home.
The passage literally starts with, and he told them a parable.
But there are Christians that you will find that have taken. Sure, we'll look it up. When you go home, look up the Pope.
A Christian quoted 1927.
Hold on, listen. When you go home, look up the Pope's writings to justify the crusade. And look at the biblical verses that were used. How's that, Dave?
I'm still waiting for
Are you going to look it up when you go home? The Pope's writings to justify the crusade.
Look it up. Send me the verses.
Okay, let's do it.
Send me the verses. Send me the verses.
All right, and if you find them, you're going to admit that you were wrong.
If you... You're still not understanding the point.
If I find you what you're asking for, will you admit you're wrong? Yes or no? It's a pretty simple question, Dave.
If you show me,
that popes use the Bible to justify massacring people.
Not the challenge I issued. Not the challenge I issued.
Why not?
The challenge I issued was you have all of these disagreements on things like carrying out apostasy laws and things like that, right? Among scholars,
among schools of thought that have used biblical verses to kill people.
You have to show that there's disagreement. You have to show that there's actual disagreement.
So you mean there's agreement that you should kill people on those verses?
No.
So I'm assuming if somebody misunderstood it, like the Pope, that there are others who would disagree with him. Not?
No. You're still not getting the situation. If some pope, here, give me an example. If some pope said the reason we're going to go kill people is because Luke 19:27 says it.
Okay.
Right? Okay. reading the passage would show that that guy's an idiot who happens to be Pope, right? The same thing with any scholar. All right. Reading Surah 9, verse 29 in context and saying, fight those who do not believe, means that at least once you reach a certain stage in society, you're supposed to fight those who do not believe in Allah, and you read the commentaries. Someone concluding that is not an idiot.
So
you don't have to be an idiot.
If a Christian
That's the point. There are reasonable interpretations of these. There's no reasonable interpretation.
You are saying that if a Christian scholar takes that to be a problem and say the lesson here for us to learn is that you kill those that didn't want you to reign, and that's why we're going to kill those Muslims, Spanish Inquisition and all of that were supported by biblical verses by Christian scholars of the time, right? If I prove you that, will you admit you're wrong?
You did not listen. You did not listen to anything I just said.
I did. But you just don't want to admit because you know I'm going to prove it.
If a pope,
you know I'm going to come back with evidence.
If a pope were to quote 1927, when the context showed there is no possible way to interpret it that way.
Why not? What if the Pope feel,
keep in mind,
as a scholar,
the same thing, if a Muslim scholar quoted some verse and completely destroyed the context, and the next verse destroyed it, right? That's not what we're talking about.
This is not the next verse.
We're not talking about that at all.
This is the issue, right? This is the issue. When I showed you all those other verses as well, the problem was that you were all like, well, read the other part, read this, read that, right? And there are Christians, scholars and others, experts in the Bible that have used biblical verses to carry out horrible, horrendous crimes. Now, when I am telling to you that I'll bring you those evidences, names, and which verses and everything, you are still trying to find a back way out because you know I'm going to find it, and you know you're going to be proven wrong again.
You missed the point entirely. I'm saying you take any of these verses and say this means we should go kill people. You would have to either be insane or have some agenda. Here's what you can say. Here's what you can say about Christianity and Islam. There are people who have agendas who will knowingly distort the meanings of verses in order to get what they want. I'm sure you'd say that about. I'm sure you would say that about ISIS, right? That they're distorting passages, right? They're distorting passages. Yeah.
So you would say there is no Christian that sincerely believes that killing homosexuals is a biblical order on it.
If a Christian tried to apply that today, I would regard him as insane, or massive agenda.
So Mr. Anderson, the Christian preacher from Arizona,
if he says homosexuals, according to Christianity, should be executed, I would.
You haven't watched his video?
No.
Then Preacher Anderson, go watch his news footage where he shows the Bible and says that is the ruling in Christianity for Bible.
There is no ruling in Christianity. You'd have to go to the Old Covenant.
That's what he said.
And therefore he'd be ignoring the entire New Covenant.
So now you are caught on tape.
I'm not caught.
A Christian
is he a scholar?
preacher. He is a scholar.
He's a respected scholar?
Yes, he is.
A respected scholar.
Yes.
Oh, he feels he is.
Oh, he has a large following. He has degrees. He has what?
So when
now he's caught. Now he's caught. Watch him run. A Christian scholar, a minister with a following, using the biblical verses, feels that the order for him is that, with context, is that homosexual should be put to death.
Or you have to have an agenda.
So which one is it?
Which one is an agenda? You don't think he has an agenda?
I don't know. I'm not going to assume that.
Some people don't like certain people.
Preacher Anderson, David Wood is saying you're either insane or have an agenda.
I am. Check. If you're saying homosexuals should be executed under the New Covenant,
you guys work it out amongst your Christian selves then, and then come to us and talk about it.
Yeah, and
thank you very
much. Then tell me how many Christians are executing homosexuals?
Plenty.
And how many jihadis are slaughtering people in the name of Allah?
Listen. You haven't been to South Sudan, you haven't been to Russia, you haven't been to other places where there are homosexuals being killed in the name of Christianity.
You haven't Islam?
Yeah, there are, of course. We already agreed earlier that many people can misunderstand things and people's actions are not an evidence. But scripturally, can people misunderstand the Bible? Even scholars, you have been proven, and you threw the poor Anderson guy under the bus. Preacher Anderson, even though I may not agree with you on a lot of things, but I do feel pretty bad that David threw you under the bus. Have a great day.
This from the guy who throws Ibn Kathir under the bus.
I did not. I explained the weakness
and his own God under the bus.
I love Ibn Kathir.
And his prophet under the bus.
And I love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And says, oh, I can't believe Deuteronomy, Exodus. Look at these horrible teachings.
You know you got
his God and his prophet say these are the inspired word of God. He throws them all under the bus.
You know
so under the bus here we have God, prophet, Ibn Kathir, greatest scholars of all time in Islam.
You just want to make your voice.
We got one guy we can go to.
Make your sound.
We got one guy we can go to learn Islam.
I told you earlier.
Any scholar is going to give us the same answer.
I'm a student of knowledge. Go speak to a scholar. No problem.
Any scholar.
a scholar who will give you answers with evidences. Yes. Ahlul dhikr.
Okay, well, any scholar can say, here are the stages of jihad, and here's the source.
Again, if a scholar tells you to do something that is clearly against the hadith, then you know that's not a scholar upon the Quran, the Sunnah, and the way of the Salaf of Ummah, right?
How can fight those who do not believe in Allah be against the hadith when Muhammad said, I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah.
Right.
You could go to other hadith and try to use those to change the meaning, but there aren't a lot of clearer passages than fight those who do not believe. And then we look at Muhammad, I've been commanded to fight people until they say that there's no God but Allah. And if you get to a position where you say, oh, but in order to understand those, you have to...
When the Quran says, but if they incline towards peace, then incline towards it too.
Wrong passage.
Then what? No.
Not
But isn't the Quran, right? It's
under a different stage.
Under
defensive jihad stage.
Where does it say that it's under defensive jihad?
That's how you reconcile.
No, you got caught again. What is it, 60? Hold on. Ooh, poor guy.
Try.
Hold on. I got you.
Important aspect within our life, the most important thing, because we don't want to end up on the other side, right? So a statement like that, yes, because we both know who God is, right? A statement like that, say the way we go about it.
Oh, poor days.
Keep going.
I got you. Don't worry.
God prescribed this worship,
8.
this worship, this worship.
Surat Anfal, the spoils of war. He just said this is defensive jihad time, right?
Nope.
Surat Anfal is defensive jihad. This is the first time I've heard that tafsir. So, in number 60, this is defensive jihad for him. Prepare against them what you believers can of military power and cavalry to deter Allah's enemies and the enemies as well as other enemies unknown to you but known to God. This is offensive right now. Whatever you spend in the cause of Allah will be paid to you in full, and that you will not be wrong. He just considered this defensive jihad. But if the enemy, in an offensive jihad time, if the enemy is inclined towards peace, make peace with them. Boom.
Not the final revelation. Before, after. Whoa. I've never.
So this is defensive jihad?
This
is a defensive jihad ayah?
Yes. Yes.
Preparing for war and getting seeds for war are defensive jihad.
Are you going out and subjugating the world? Or are you fighting people because there are people fighting you?
Surat Anfal, the spoils
8
of
or
war.
9, which came later?
Spoils.
Surah 8 or Surah 9, which one came later?
You think they came
Which
numerically?
Which one came later?
You think they came numerically?
No.
Oh,
Which one came later?
There are ayat in both.
Are you telling me that 8
let me explain it. There are ayat in Surah Tawbah and Surah Anfal that came in different time periods. They didn't come one surah at a time. You miskeen guy, you didn't know this? These surahs are not revealed one at a time. There were ayat revealed in the 8th surah.
929, before or after that?
I don't have to look that up. But this is offensive jihad.
You don't know?
And I don't know everything, bro. I got you. But here, even with offensive jihad, Allah says that if the enemy is inclined towards peace, make peace. This surah is called Anfal, which is the spoils of war, which are not from defensive jihad. Boom! David Woods, ignorance,
Wrong.
proven again.
Fight. Put it.
So Ghanima came from defensive jihad?
Let me put this slightly differently.
Ghanima comes from defensive jihad.
If that were Allah's final ruling, just as the earlier rulings about fighting people who are attacking you or something like that, right? If those are the final rulings, you wouldn't need 929.
Why
you wouldn't need fight those who do not believe in Allah.
No. You don't understand the ayat.
You wouldn't need the extra verse.
Let me explain it. Right? When you have a time, when you talk about the ayat, about Quran coming, they are coming during different battles. And if an ayat comes about a battle during Hunayn or Badr or Uhud or any of those, it doesn't mean that other ayat about jihad will not be revealed during other battles. It's not like those are enough. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you more rulings, more explanation, more encouragement. These are part of how the Quran was revealed. The Quran is not revealed Surah 8 and Surah 9. Ayat are revealed in context of what's going on. That's why even some ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah are going to be early and some are going to be later. This is why surahs are not revealed chunks, but rather for us to understand the context.
That's all a smoke screen. You know 929 was revealed after that.
I don't know that. You know that? Swear to God that you think I know that.
Wow.
I don't. Right? And you don't either.
I think
you don't either. How do you know that?
Over and over again it talks about.
How do you know that the surah in the ayah in Surah Tawbah is after that of Anfal? Give me evidence now. You don't. You don't know.
Here you go. I just happen to have
How
it with
do you know
me.
that then?
You
don't know.
You're saying that's before the revelations in 929.
I said I don't know.
Okay.
I have to look at the Asbab
check it out,
al-Nuzul.
check it out.
But you said you do know that, so I'm asking, where's the evidence for you knowing that? You've got none. Zero. Zilch.
None. And I won't be able to look it up, right?
No, tell me. Go ahead. Look it up. How do you know that already? You said you know that already.
Surah 9 is the last major surah revealed. Man. Surah 9 is the last major surah of the Quran revealed.
He doesn't even know the ayat and how they were revealed. What's the last ayat revealed in the Quran?
100 and... Oh wait, no.
100.
I thought you were saying the last chapter. It's the one. Your religion's been completed.
It is not. Miskeen. He doesn't know. See, this is the problem. You guys need to know. This man doesn't know about Islam. He just pretends. He plays it on TV.
He just quotes your sources,
Look,
and then all the sources are wrong.
All he wants.
Bye-bye. You can't read the Quran and understand
is your money.
You can't.
Right? You see? That's all he wants. I'm sorry. Be honest, bro. Be honest.
My livelihood is under the shade of my spear.
It is. Your livelihood is under the shade of your lies.
This from the guy who wants...
Your livelihood is under the shade of your lies.
Jews and Christians have to pay the jizya.
Be honest, bro. You see this? You see this now? You can't answer. You can't answer. Show me evidence. No, same subject. Show me evidence that the ayah in Surah Tawbah was after this ayah in Surah
Anfal. I have to look it up. I've never even heard that disputed.
But you said you know. He said he knows. How did you know if you haven't looked it up?
I've read that repeatedly. Over and over again. It talks about Surah 9 being the last major surah revealed.
From who?
In the hadith.
Those ayats we're talking about. In the hadith, there's a hadith that says that ayah is revealed after the ayah.
Talking about Surah Tawbah.
We're talking, again, maybe your brain isn't, maybe it's a little, maybe you're tired, right, from your traveling.
So 929.
Let me explain it again.
The context
Surahs
is
are
Tabuk.
not revealed
That's Tabuk.
in one chunk.
That's Tabuk. So where's 860?
Hold on. Surahs are not revealed as chunks. Ayat are revealed. Which one of these ayat is revealed first? I said I don't know.
Okay.
I will look it up. Okay. You said you do know, so I'm asking you, how do you know? Where did you read it?
I'll have to look it up.
Okay, so look it up because you don't know then, because you don't remember.
If you're saying that was revealed before Tabuk, I'm going
to say this for the 6th time now. I said I don't know. Right? I don't speak without knowledge. I don't just Google stuff and think I know. Right? So we would have to look that up. But the hukam that when somebody inclines towards peace, you do as well, you see this implemented in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, even in the later stages. You see the khulafa, the Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiallahu anhum, making contracts, making deals. You have the Abbasiyya and Umayyah. Go and read your history books, right? You see them making alliances with non-Muslims. So, you understanding the context should have understood that no doubt the hukam, that if somebody inclines toward peace, you do as well, is applicable. But you didn't know that, and you don't want to know that.
Because the scholars I read said it doesn't work.
You don't know.
Abu Humayd.
Abu Humayd didn't talk about these ayats, bro. You're putting that into somebody's mouth.
He talked about the commands to fight and subjugate being the final revelations. These are the final revelations.
He was talking about these ayats in Tawbah and Anfal? He was not.
973, 9123, yeah.
Those were the two ayats he's talking about. You're lying on Abu Humayd. Bring the book next time.
Okay.
We'll look at it.
You can look it up. If you have the Darussalam edition of
I have
Bukhari.
I have it at home.
Yeah, just go to the end. He's got this whole thing on jihad.
Okay, I'll bring it with me.
Understanding it in context.
I'll bring it with me next time.
Cool.
And we can look at it together.
Yeah, we can see if it's right. Cool. That works. Maybe
you will become Muslim.
No, maybe we can. Maybe one day we can actually get to this. Because that's why I came. Look at this thing getting all raggedy.
I know, man.
Because I carried it out here 50 times.
Right? Take a new one.
And still can't find what this is. I already grabbed the new one. I grabbed the new one.
Listen. You came here. You brought up a subject. I humored you, right? And I went with you. Don't try to act like I didn't. You did. If you had come here and you didn't bring up Jizya and you brought this up, I would have addressed this. Not a problem, right? When you come and you bring up a subject...
I didn't bring that up. You said you wanted to talk about Jizya.
Oh, bro. Now, you were on
camera.
You showed me a tweet.
I asked you that because people keep sending it to me.
Exactly.
I asked you.
So,
that was it.
So who brought that up? You did.
I did. You answered it.
And then I said...
We were done.
I said, watch the video. When you go home, I said, do you want me to explain it to you? And you said yes.
Did not know that Jizya would be a 2-hour conversation.
Well, that's your lack of understanding, bro. These are deep subjects. We teach whole classes on them.
It's too bad the Quran just couldn't be clear the first time.
The Quran is as clear as it gets. It's too bad you're too ignorant to understand it.
As clear as it gets.
Let me
So
say
that all the
this to you.
scholars got it wrong.
Again, once
until
again.
we get to
once again.
Shaykh Uthman.
Once again.
Ibn
I
Kathir got it
never
wrong.
said all the scholars got it wrong. I never said they come to me. I said go to the people of knowledge. And Dave just has some issue
I don't know who else to
trying
go to
understand.
besides you.
No problem, come to me.
That's what I did.
So when I explained to you then, instead of understanding, you just wanted to debate. To be honest, right? When
No, if you say something that I read
explain to
that seems false, it doesn't seem to fit with the Quran or the Hadith or Ibn
when
Kathir
I
or someone
gave
else.
you, when I gave you
I'm
other,
inclined to
when
I'm
I
inclined
gave
to
you
bring
other,
that up as an
when
objection.
I gave you other ayat,
Come on,
other ahadith, right?
we're not your dimmies, dude. We don't just sit here and you give information. We just sit there. Yes, whatever you say. Okay, don't hit me. We're not like that. You know what I mean?
Listen.
You say something that's wrong.
Listen, I'm not your slave from the Bible either, where you're going to hit me with a rod and try to kill me, and I'm not your dad, so don't go there, right?
Your prophet said,
let me
your
take
prophet said go with
it
that.
back. Look,
Your
listen,
prophet said believe that.
my prophet did not say believe in beating your slaves. You're lying on
Your
my prophet,
affirmed.
as you have said.
Your prophet, in fact, no. Your God, Surah 5, verse 43. The Jews,
5:30.
5:43 of the
Half an hour
Quran.
past
The
one.
Jews come to Muhammad to settle dispute, and Allah says, why do they come to you when they have the Torah? They're required to judge by the Torah. If anyone fails to judge by what Allah has revealed, they're no better than those who rebel. You go to the historical background from that verse. Muhammad is set up as the judge. He says, bring me the Torah. They bring him the Torah. He puts it on the judgment cushion, says, I believe in you and in the one who revealed you. He's talking to the Torah. In Ibn Asad, the Jews come to him and they say, do you really believe in this Torah that we have with us? He says, yes, I do, but you've broken your covenant. Over and over again, he affirms the inspiration, preservation, and authority of the Torah in the possession of the Jews. According to the Quran, Jesus affirmed the Torah that he had between his hands. So everyone's affirming the Torah, and somehow we don't believe in that Torah, even though all your books here are quoting the Torah.
Are you done?
Your tracks are.
Are you done?
So Allah says, believe the Torah.
Are you done? You see this? He doesn't want me to speak.
Muhammad says, believe the
he
Torah.
knows. Right, when Allah says in the same surah earlier, this is the problem with context that you don't worry about, right? Is that those are people also that wrote things with their own hands and attributed to Allah.
Same surah?
Let me finish.
Same surah?
Same surah.
Which surah?
Bring it. I just explained it to your other little Christian friend.
Which surah? Here's the Quran. Here's the Quran. I quoted 543. I quoted 543. Same surah.
I got you, bro. Relax.
They wrote it with their own hands.
Yeah, let me use a better translation. I hate using all these translations. Give me the... What happened in the Quran that was sitting there?
While he's looking that up, since it's going to take a second, and it's not going to find it at all.
Alright, hold on.
You're looking for Surah 279, but that's a different. That's a different chapter. So 543, Jews come to Muhammad to settle the dispute. Allah says, why are they coming to you when they have the Torah? So apparently the Torah is the judge that they're commanded to judge by. A few verses later, Christians are told to judge by the gospel. People of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed therein. Next verse, Muslims are commanded to judge by the Quran. So you get this different perspective, that the different groups have their different revelations, and they have to judge by them because all those revelations are from God. But eventually some Muslims started looking into the Torah and the Gospel, realizing, wait a minute, all these scriptures that were affirmed as the Word of God by Allah and Muhammad, as the inspired, preserved, authoritative Word of God, still authoritative, they don't line up with the Quran at all. Therefore, they must have been corrupted.
Oh, David Wood.
What's that?
Surah 5, verse 41. Today, this is the end of David Wood. O Messenger, let not those who hurry to fail and to disbelieve grieve you. Of such who say we believe with their mouths, but their hearts have no faith. And of the Jews are men who listen much eagerly to lies, and listen to those who have come before you. And they change the words from their places.
You said
same
right.
surah.
No, you said right.
Same surah.
You said right.
Same surah.
You said they wrote it.
Yes,
You didn't say they wrote it.
changed the words of God from their places.
Whoa.
And
That's
they're
not what
given
you
to
said.
take this, but they have not become beware. Whoever Allah
Not
wants
what
to
you
put
said.
in fitna, This is the
Not what you
ayah
said.
in the same surah
Okay.
before. No, hold on,
look.
hold on, Dave. This shows. No, hold on. You got caught. You got caught.
I'm having
Your
trouble
career
taking you as
ended
not
now.
being deceptive right now.
Your career
You know
ended
that's
now.
not what it said.
Let me just read.
You know that's not
Let
what
me
it
just
said.
read.
You know it.
Let me just read.
100%
Let me
you know
just
you're
read.
wrong.
Let me read.
Okay.
Here, when we talk about those Jews that changed their scripture,
Didn't say this.
this is they took those words out of their place.
While they're speaking?
This is changing.
While they're speaking?
No.
While they're speaking
who
or
are
in
given,
the text?
Who are given, right? So listen to others who have not come. They have changed the words. Which words are these? They changed the words of what was revealed to them from their places. Hold on. And say that if you were given this, take it. But if you are not given this, beware. And whoever Allah wants to put into a fitna and error, you cannot do nothing against them. Those are the ones whose hearts have not been purified. Now this ayah that shows that they changed the words is before
In the text?
the ayah.
In the text, it says they changed the words in the text. Because there are two ways to change the words, right? Hang on. Because look, we read Surah 3, verse 78. There is among them a section who distort the book with their tongues.
Exactly.
As they read, you would think it is a part of the book. Yes.
Exactly.
They distort it with their tongues.
Yes.
That means it's corrupted? The text is corrupted?
Yes, because
Whoa, he said yes. Are there Muslims who distort the Quran with their words?
What I'm saying.
Are there Muslims who distort the Quran with their words?
Let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish, right?
You've just proven the Quran is corrupt.
No, I have not.
Yes, you did.
I have
100%.
Hold on. When you see those that change the words, and Allah is warning you about them before those ayat,
From their places.
And from their
How can they
places.
change them if they don't still have them?
Hold on. They have, and they have changed them, right? So this is where you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned about this before we go forward in the same. When I told you in the same surah, and I found it for you, now wait. If you look at the hadith, hold on. I'm not done. If you look at the hadith that you quoted from a Tirmidhi, without even knowing that it's from a Tirmidhi, where Rasulullah ﷺ got off and put the Torah on the pillow, right?
He quoted Abu Dawud.
Miskeen is going to go home and find it that it's not in Abu Dawud, but it's okay.
It is in Abu Dawud.
Okay, we'll go.
Abu Dawud Surah.
Abu Dawud Surah.
Wait.
What surah?
Shaykh Uthman is saying this is not in Sunan Abu Dawud, right?
Let me explain the hadith to you if you don't mind, right?
Okay.
The hadith where Rasulullah ﷺ put the Torah on the pillow. He said, I believe in the one who sent that, no doubt. But if you look at the context of the hadith, when Umar ibn Khattab found a piece of the Torah, Rasulullah ﷺ told him that this is not going to be a means of guidance. Even if Musa came today, he would have to rule by the Quran. This is why you don't understand context of the ahadith and other ahadith. You take one out of context. No doubt the Torah, the Injil were revealed by Allah. And as I've continued to, no doubt aspects of that message. But Rasulullah ﷺ was told in the Quran that these people have changed parts of the book.
No.
They have.
No, they change it with their mouths.
Yeah. When they speak, when they and in the Quran is also the other ayah that you know, that they write and say in their writing that which is not from Allah and attributed to Allah. Is that not true?
And you're saying this would corrupt all of the books?
This is going to corrupt those books that they had, no doubt.
So in Mecca.
Let me explain this, right? The Quran, the difference, the Quran, and why, alhamdulillah, Allah preserved it, is we have manuscripts, we have oral memorization, we have ijma', consensus of the Sahaba on the Quran from Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Nas, right? Something you don't have in the Bible. Many Christians have different books that they would put in there or not.
Our Bible.
Right? Again, you misunderstand the affirmation.
Why would he say? Why would Allah say?
It's 5:30.
Why would Allah say? Why do they need you?
Just because you got nothing better to do doesn't mean that I don't have a family and I don't have a job and things.
I'm just saying. Why would Allah say?
I've been here half an hour because this is not my job. You're just trying to make your money. I gotta go do other things.
Everything must be some impure motive.
5 o'clock.
Just while
5 o'clock.
while you're setting up, while you're breaking down. Why would Allah tell them? Why would Allah tell them?
From DC, just say we love you.
Why would Allah tell them? Why would Allah say? Why do they come to you when they have the Torah?
Sure.
If it's corrupt.
Sure.
And when we read the passages,
you see now he doesn't want to listen to the explanation, right? This is a style in tafsir called tawbih. You know what tawbih is?
No, what's that?
You don't, because you're ignorant. Now, tawbih is when you are told something to teach you a lesson, which is not a literal meaning, right? The point there was not that the Jews should not come to the Prophet ﷺ, but they would come to the Prophet ﷺ when it was beneficial for them, and when not, they would go back to the Torah. So they were being told, paying attention, bro?
Not what he says at all.
Again,
Why do they need you when they have the Torah?
So they have tawbih. Do you not understand ulum of Quran? You don't. That's the problem. When the Prophet ﷺ was there, did he not tell them that if you want to rule today, you have to rule by the Quran? Even if Musa ﷺ came, he would rule by the Quran. Did he not tell him that?
And you're telling me he contradicted himself.
Thank you. It's not.
He ordered
It's
the
not.
Jews
It's
to
not a
judge by the.
contradiction.
He ordered the Jews to judge by the Torah.
Let me explain this to you, okay? If you as David would say that I'm a liar and I'm this and I'm that, you make all these videos, and then when you have an issue with your wife, for example, you come to me and say, hey, you're the most trustworthy guy I know, can you judge between us? And I tell you, why are you coming to me? Why don't you go to Sam and your friends? I don't mean that you should go to them. I'm trying to teach you.
He didn't actually mean it.
No, it's tawbih.
What about in
You know
Ibn
what
Asad
tawbih
when they say, are you affirming the Torah that we have? And he says,
Sure.
yes.
Well, bring me Ibn Ishaq, because Ibn Ishaq, as you are well aware, has many riwayats on al-Waqidi that are matruk, right? Oh, you didn't know that either.
No, if you want to throw Ibn Asad under the bus, that's good too.
Listen.
What about infirmity when Muhammad said that Jews have the Torah and Christians have the gospel, and it was in the same.
What was revealed to them?
It has to be.
No. What is there, or what was revealed to them? Show me the hadith.
It has to be.
Show me the hadith.
Okay.
And your hands not tired, bro? You get a stand next time.
Okay, so.
Oh, is that a text message?
It's a text message from myself, from David Wood. I texted myself because I can't have all the sources. All right, Rafi bin Haratha blah 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 came to him and said, "Do you not allege? I'm worried that my wife's going to send me some perverted message about what she wants me to do to her, or something like that." And then
put on a 90 again. Go ahead. He put a show on, wasn't a 90.
Came to him and said, "Do you not allege that you follow the religion of Abraham and believe in the Torah, which we have, and testify that it is the truth from God?" He replied, "Certainly, but you have sinned and broken the covenant contained therein, and concealed what you were ordered to make plain to men." Notice,
concealed from the book. Change the verse.
Doesn't say the
concealed.
book. He doesn't.
What do you conceal?
Okay,
what do you conceal then?
Let's go to the other one.
Okay, hold on. You want to run now? You see, he wants to run.
No.
That Rasulullah is telling them, you have concealed from this book. No. You're caught.
Wrong.
You are caught from your own little text message that you sent to yourself.
Watch.
Okay, go ahead. When I tell you, if you come to me and I say you have concealed from this message, do I mean that you have the preserved message? No.
So if ISIS jihadis come up and they say, "Here's what the Quran says," and it's not, then they've corrupted the text. They've changed the text.
Then I will tell them you don't understand the text. But if they go and they change the Quran, which they have not, but if they went and changed it, then I would say you're concealing the message, and I would not believe in what they have.
And if they quoted passages and changed the order in order to
like repeatedly, I feel bad for you.
You're
People
throwing
can watch
your
the
own
video.
God and your own
People can watch the
prophet
video
under the
bro.
bus.
But it's a little late. I got a family. You got nothing to do in San Diego.
Keep in mind. So if I write this is the Quran,
right?
I've corrupted the Quran, right?
No.
If someone says,
listen.
Your interpretation of 279 is they write the book and claim that it's from God.
Is
that the Torah has been corrupted?
Listen, let me explain it. And this is the last thing I'm going to explain. I'm done, right?
And just to add to that, So I just read a couple words. In gulps will he sip it. And let's say I'm talking to an illiterate audience, and they don't know, they can't read it for themselves. And I say, it says, will he sip it in gulps? I changed the word order, right? I changed it. According to you, that's what the Quran said. If you write something and you say it's a book, your book's been corrupted. Or if you change some words, for their places, which I just did with the Quran, then the book has been corrupted. So according to the criteria you gave for a corrupt book, the Quran is 100% corrupt.
Wrong. Again,
it is not wrong.
Let me explain it.
That's what you said.
Let me explain it. Now listen. Open the ears, close the mouth. All right? So, when we look at the Quran, you writing on a piece of paper does not affect the Quran. That is David Wood's stupidity to think that's going to affect the Quran.
A Jew writing something.
You see this? You see he's not letting me speak? Let your audience see
that
Jew
right now could write something that's not in the Torah. It would not change the Torah. How's it going to change? There are Torahs around the world. How are you going to change it? It's impossible.
I listened to him, but he won't let me speak because he knows he's done. Let your audience see it. Let your people see it. Let your audience.
Come
see
on,
it.
you say you're in a rush. Get your point.
Yeah. So you're bringing it up. Now let me finish.
Get your point.
When you write on a piece of paper, that doesn't affect the Quran, because standing amongst us are those that have memorized the entire Quran. We have manuscripts. We have the original text. Your writings today can't affect the Quran.
The original text?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
You have the original text.
Let me speak. We have texts that we can carbon date to the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, to the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, Uthmani scripts. Alhamdulillah, we have it. And we have videos on it you can watch if you want to educate yourself. Now, what the difference is, that if you are the people who preserve the Quran and you go in there and you write in ayat that are not from Allah, then the Quran would be corrupted. But alhamdulillah, that cannot happen.
No, it wouldn't.
As it did happen,
Even that wouldn't corrupt
in
the
the
Quran.
Torah and the Injil, that the people went and added and subtracted, and
It
that's
doesn't
why
say they
when
did
you
it
look
all.
at,
Not
when
what
you
it
look
said.
at, let me speak.
Allah
You
is
see
under
this?
the bus.
You see this?
Allah
You see
says
this?
one thing, He
Do you see
completely
this?
changes it.
Do you see this?
It
You
says
see it?
changing
You
it
see
with their
You
tongues.
see it?
It
And
says
their
changing
hands.
it with their tongues. He
The
says
yad.
that means text. That's what Allah said. He's
Yad.
saying text.
He
with
doesn't
their
know the word
tongues.
yad means.
A Muslim
What
changes
does
it with
yad
his
mean?
tongue. Does that mean the text is
What
correct?
does yad mean? Thank you.
What?
Yad means hand.
With the pen.
Where?
Yad.
In which verse?
That's what it means.
In which verse?
In
In any context.
In
If they
541?
use the word hit, it means with your hand.
You're quoting 541 there?
hold on, bro.
Are you going to Surah 279?
I am.
Oh my goodness.
Of course. Hold on.
Wait, are we gonna- are we gonna look at the- are we
Let me
gonna-
finish. Let me finish.
Are we going to look at the commentaries? No one agrees with you.
Hold on. I
But,
appreciate
but
nobody
what
agrees with me.
what do they know?
I'm just going to show you something. Come here, Muawiyah, come here. This is the last point I'm making. I'm out, okay? Read this word in
Yes,
Arabic.
we know it's hand
Read the word.
in 279. That's not talking about changing.
ID him with their hand. Done.
We know that. Now read it. Hey, Shaykh, you want to read the verse before it?
Are you ready?
Want to read the verse before it?
I told you I'm done, right?
It talks about the illiterate people
Look,
who
it's-
don't know the
it's
book.
8:40.
People who
Okay.
don't know the book
Then I got
are
it. Let me
writings.
just
No,
finish.
people who don't know the book
Ummiyun
are-
Ummiyun. Look at the tafsir Shaykh ibn Uthaymin. It is those that are guessing. Those that their own hawa is putting forward. It does not mean that they're illiterate in the sense of not being able to write.
And what?
Look up.
What do
Look
the-
up.
What
Look
do your
up.
commentators say about this?
I just told you.
Nope.
Read Tafsir ibn Kathir or Shaykh ibn Uthaymin, who says Ummiyun here is they don't have except amani. That's in the ayah, right? Which is that they don't have except their own wishes. They are not knowledgeable enough. Not that they can't
They're not
write,
knowledgeable.
but they do
They're not
write.
knowledgeable.
Not knowledgeable in the sense that they don't know
Yeah.
right from wrong.
And what are they writing?
And they are taking.
What are they writing?
Let me answer, bro. Let me answer, right? They are taking from their own desires, right? And they are writing into their scriptures that which Allah did not reveal in the Quran.
Doesn't say they're writing
Thank
in
you.
their scriptures.
Look,
Your commentators actually say, Sheikh, they actually
Bro,
say
which
that this
commentator?
referred
Bring
to
it.
some Jews,
Bring it.
to some Jews
Bring it.
who
Let's
wrote
talk
a
about it.
false prophecy about Muhammad in order
Bring-
to lead people away from the true prophecies
Bring
about
it.
Muhammad. Now this raises the question.
Okay, bring it.
How would a Jew?
You see this?
No.
He's just
how
talking
would-
to you now.
How would? Because you made the point. If I wrote something that was the Quran here, this is why I said no. Even if you added something into the Quran,
It would
you
not
would
be
not
corrupt.
change the Quran.
I'll tell you
it
why.
would not, because there are Qurans around the world. Now,
Because people have
if
memorized the
if
entire
a
Quran.
If a Jew in Medina
Sure.
wrote something in there, that's not what it's saying. That's not what it's saying, right? These are talking about illiterate people who are trying to supposedly throw people off the trail of Muhammad.
So illiterate
they write,
people are writing.
they write something and say, "This
So
is the
you
Torah."
think an illiterate person just
I'm
writing
talking
away?
about uneducated. You know what I mean?
So no, hold on. So are you saying that this is just one person that just didn't know and wrote something?
No, you could say they're all doing it.
Okay,
You could say they're all
the
doing
Quran
it.
tells
How,
us-
in the name of common sense,
Okay.
if a 7th century Jew
Sure.
or group of Jews
Okay.
in Medina, in order to throw people off the trail of Muhammad,
Sure.
if they sit down and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and write a false description of Muhammad, how in the name of common sense does that change Torahs around the world? We have Torahs before that time still intact. They're called
Sure.
the Dead Sea Scrolls. Guess what? Christians had the Torah during that time.
Let me-
If Jews in Medina changed it, would that mean it changed in Christian copies of the Bible,
let me-
which we still have?
got you, I
Your
got you.
interpretation
I got
makes
you.
zero sense.
I get you. Let me explain.
Can't possibly mean what you're saying.
Let me explain it. To you,
Go ahead.
Okay? Are there in the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered later? right? And other manuscripts of the Torah differences.
If you're talking if you're talking about textual variants, not the sort that help you, just as there are textual variants in manuscripts of the Quran. There are differences in manuscripts of the Quran. So the Quran's been corrupted. That's what the Quran means. The Quran's been corrupted.
Let me explain it again.
Textual variants all over the place. Different qira'at used around the world.
Let me explain. This is a moron doesn't know what a qira'at is, right? Let me explain it.
Are there textual differences?
Let me explain it, bro.
There are textual differences.
Listen.
Textual differences. It's been corrupted.
So you can't listen. This is the problem with him. You can't listen, right? Now, when you look at the Torah, are there different verses? Are there different lines? And I have a whole book on the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Standard Torah and the differences between them. So it is not just that they're different recitations. Now his father, for example, he recites in Shu'bah and Asim, and somebody else will recite in Hafs and Asim. Those are all in accordance to one Mus'haf, the Uthmani Mus'haf. You don't know that, right? Miskeen, right? But the Torah has actual, from the Dead Sea Scrolls and the other scriptures, actual verses, chapters that have differences, and there are entire books written on that. That means there were rabbis who wrote things in that are not in other scriptures of the Torah. From their hands, they added to it, and that's why there's discussions on what should. Even the Catholic Old Testament has different numbers of verses and books than the Christian one. In the Quran, find me one Muslim in the entire world that does not agree that the Quran begins with Al-Fatiha and with Surah An-Nas. Find me one. One. I didn't think so.
Hang on.
Go ahead, think.
Ubay ibn Ka'b?
Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu did not believe that Surah Fatiha ends in Surah Nas?
He didn't have two extra surahs in his Quran?
No!
Ibn Masud didn't have 111 chapters in his Quran?
No! Miskeen!
Ubay ibn Ka'b didn't say that there are over 200 verses missing from Surah 33?
Not at all. Let me explain this. Let me explain.
He didn't have extra words?
He did not. Let me explain.
He did not have extra words.
Can I explain it now?
Well, yeah, but I mean, even Yusuf Ali's commentary admits it.
Yusuf Ali was an Ismaili, as I told you.
Yeah, Yusuf Ali is just lying about what's in.
Okay. Let me
what's in the Qira'at
get the book. Ubay ibn Ka'b. Listen. Sir, if you want to learn. This is why you didn't come here to learn, because you're not trying to learn, you're just trying to argue.
Yeah, you keep saying false stuff. Quit saying false things, and I won't have to respond.
Al-Itqan of Asyuti, and he has an entire chapter that discusses in these differences. What he explained about Ubay ibn Ka'b radiyallahu are those ayat that were revealed and then put in different surahs. It's not that they were disappeared. Ibn Mas'ud, let me finish before you go into Yusuf Ali. And Yusuf Ali, again, was Ismaili. We don't accept his commentary. He even denied the Hur al-Ain, so I mean, we're not going to go there, right? But now when we go to the Yusuf Ali, I said that in the beginning. When you first pulled that out, I told you, Yusuf Ali, he's Ismaili. I told you that in the beginning.
I know you hate all these other groups. It doesn't mean I can't get information from them. Why should I trust you over them?
Evidence. Okay? Now, Asyuti, which is a standard for Itqan, he says about Ibn Mas'ud, it is not that he didn't have Qul A'udhu bil-Falaq, Qul A'udhu bin-Nas, but he took them as adhkar originally until he was reminded. And that's why when Zayd ibn Thabit, you know who Zayd ibn Thabit is?
Yeah.
You know who he is? When he compiled it, was there any khilaf or was there ijma'? Ijma'. Consensus of all of the Sahaba that this is the Quran as revealed from Al-Fatiha to Nas. Zayd ibn Thabit radiyallahu anhu in the time of Abu Bakr and again in the time of Uthman. This is the ignorance that he doesn't know. He did not. Zayd ibn Thabit left off the Quran. What's wrong with you?
He didn't find.
What is wrong with you?
Zayd ibn Thabit didn't when he did the Uthmani recension. He didn't find a couple verses that were missing.
No.
Okay.
Where did you get that from?
Interesting.
Yourself?
You didn't find the two verses from.
Listen. Zayd ibn Thabit radiyallahu, when he compiled the Quran at the time of Abu Bakr radiyallahu and re-standardized the prints he sent out, they were the same. This is why the Sahaba came to an ijma'. You know what the word ijma' means? Consensus. I mean, no Sahabi disagreed when this was sent out. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu knew Qul A'udhu bil-Falaq, Qul A'udhu bin-Nas. He led them in salah with them. There are ahadith where Ibn Mas'ud recites them in salah. But what he was explaining was he took them to be adhkar originally until he was reminded. And that's why when Zayd ibn Thabit compiled the Quran, he didn't just do it from his own. He collected all of the Huffaz and all of the Sahaba until they came to a consensus. And that's why today, I ask you, David Wood, find me one Muslim that does not believe that the Surah Al-Fatiha to Surah Al-Nas is Quran.
You're talking about after all the variants and so on are burned.
Again,
Uthman had to burn them all.
Uthman did not burn variances. This is again your ignorance. So let me explain. No.
The reason for compiling them and burning them was because there were differences in the recitation of the Quran.
There are all the recitations go to the Mus'haf of Uthman. Then how could those differences have been gone? Now, let me finish with you now. When Uthman radiallahu anh collected the Quran, people had small scripts. And what he wanted to do was to make sure that people don't start to take those scripts and misunderstand and join them in wrong places as they're not in a book format. So he compiled it.
So differences in the recitation of the Quran.
No. Again, the differences of Qira'at continue on the Mus'haf Uthman. Even today, every Qira'at has, you know the three conditions of the Qira'at?
One second, just let me read this so I can put it down. So this is commentary on the verse, Surah 33, verse 6. The Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers. He says, in spiritual relationships, the Prophet is entailed to more respect and consideration than blood relations. In some qira'as, like that of Ubay ibn Ka'b, occur also the words, and he is a father of them, which imply his spiritual relationship and connection with the words, and his wives are their mothers. So in his qira'ah,
so he
says,
no, wait,
hold
on. Now, this is your ignorance again. Bring me the ayah. David Wood's going to get done another time now.
Yeah, because Ubay ibn Ka'b screwed up.
Because you didn't understand the hadith. That's the problem.
Okay. There you go, right there. That's the note. That's the verse.
So the note is
for some strange reason.
7-4.
For some strange reason, Ubay ibn Ka'b had extra words in his.
He did not have extra words. Hold on, I'm showing you. I'm showing you, right? وكان الله بما يعملون بصير. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولي للمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجهم وأمهاتهم. Here, in this recitation of Ubay ibn Ka'b, which again this is one of the shadh recitations, meaning this is not established from the mutawatir ahadith, which you don't know anything about, but what can I do? Here, the word is pronounced differently. It's not an additional word, which changes its meaning from their own wives, from their own selves and wives, to rather their own fathers. But this is first off, this recitation,
and he is a father to them.
Right. Again, so like here, how he is closer to them in the recitation, the word changes the meaning of it. Not that there's an additional word, right? Like the word.
He said, occur also the words.
Let me explain it to you again, and you get it fun, and you can read it. But the thing is, you don't really want to learn. The word walid and walida, for example, right? And just the change in recitation changes the meaning. Both of them being correct. Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu, this qira'at is not established mutawatir. Every qira'at has to be mutawatir from a Nabi alayhi salam. But even here, it was not the additional word, but the difference in recitation that gave the depth in meaning. Now, these recitations, as Asyuti has mentioned, that are shadh. That means that they are not accepted, because even in recitation, we have to make sure they're mutawatir, that they are through numerous authentic chains. Those that are through authentic numerous chains, they do not have additional words, because they all have to go back to one Mus'haf. Mus'haf of Uthman radiallahu anh. Any recitation that may be attributed to anybody that does not go back to the Mus'haf of Uthman is rejected. Sorry, Dave.
So if Muhammad's other companions
again
had different recitations, because that's
you're not getting. That's
right? Even in Bukhari. So Umar said, Ubay was the best of the reciters among us, but we leave off some of what he recited. They're leaving it off.
Excellent. What does that hadith talk about?
Let me guess. Different pronunciations or something.
No. So Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu had his style of recitation that would elongate things the Quraysh did not want to elongate. See, so this is the thing. You're ignorant
this
of what's
is amazing.
Going
We're
on,
sitting
right?
here reading. There are passages you can read. This is Ubay ibn Ka'b who said that over 200 verses are missing just from Surah 33.
Again,
he's got extra words.
The problem
he's got extra words here.
The problem
and everything will be reinterpreted as nope, it was exactly the same.
Interpretation.
He just elongated the word.
If you had understood the context.
And we're
if you
not
actually
elongating it.
study.
That's what
Listen, do
Umar's
this,
saying.
Do this. Go get the book Al-Itqan and read it for yourself so you can look at historic evidences. The problem is you don't really want to know the answer. We study these sciences. That's why we have the answer. You don't study them and make ignorant attempts to make videos, and that's why when I correct you, you're like, oh, how come you always have the answer? Because we study these Qur'an.
I would like your answer on this, and I'm not even objecting.
Can we end? I told you, this is like almost
I
6
actually
o'clock.
want this.
And he told me one more thing
Sahih
half an
Muslim.
hour ago.
Sahih Muslim.
This is your last thing then?
Sahih Muslim.
Last thing?
Sahih Muslim 2286.
Okay.
That's where Abu Musa, it says Abu Musa went to the reciters of Basra, and he said, be careful that you're reciting the Quran for a long time doesn't harden your hearts, as were hardened the hearts of those who came before you. And then he says basically they forgot 2 chapters of the Quran.
2286.
You're using Dar es Salaam.
Which one do you want me to use? Show me the hadith so I can.
Wait, it's Sunnah.com gives.
I just want to look at the wording of the hadith that you're saying. Because you misunderstood every hadith till now, so I'm assuming you misunderstood this as well.
You don't know what hadith I'm talking about?
Nope. And not until you show me.
The one I saw them, the 2 stars about that. So he didn't answer. He actually didn't answer like good questions.
All this way from New York just to get destroyed again. Miskeen. Ring it. Oh, can't find it.
No.
You were throwing the number out.
This has a different numbering system.
Then which one were you looking at?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
What are you laughing? You're using.
I'm just giggling because my time
here we
to
go,
go
here we go.
an hour ago.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. All right, there we go. So what is the hadith number here?
You see the 2286? That's in the old book.
Yeah, okay. So, you are the best amongst the inhabitants of Basra, for you are the reciters amongst them, so continue to recite. Continue to recite. That your reciting for a long time may not harden your hearts, so they were hardened, as were the hardened of the hearts of those before you. We used to recite a surah which resembled in length and surah in severity, Surah Al-Bara, which is Tawbah. I have, however, forgotten it, with the exception of which I remember out of it. If there were 2 valleys full of riches of the son of Adam, he would long for a 3rd valley, and nothing would fill their stomachs of the son of Adam except dust. And we used to recite a surah which resembled one of the surahs of Mushabbiyat, and I have forgotten it. But remember this much of it. What's your point?
This is Abu Musa.
Abu Musa al-Ash'ari.
He goes to the reciters. He goes to the reciters of Basra.
Okay.
Right? And he says, hey, just be careful that you reciting the Quran for a long time doesn't harden your heart. Like you get bored with it or something, you get sick of it or something, right?
No. You don't understand. This is the thing, you're ignorant, right?
Reading words off a page.
No, and not understanding them apparently. Okay? So you're reciting for a long time may not harden your heart, as were hardens of those before you. So he's telling them, continue to recite,
obviously,
so that your reciting does not harden your hearts.
Right. And he says, as were hardened the hearts of those before you.
So by not reciting,
the earlier generation,
exactly.
Right? By not reciting, right?
Hold on.
And then he says, there was a chapter of the Quran in length and severity, like Surah At-Tawbah. So there's a chapter as long as and hard as Surah At-Tawbah.
Okay.
Right? But I have forgotten it.
Sure.
Right? But he gives a verse out of it. If there were 2 valleys for the son of 2 valleys of riches for the son of Adam, they would want a 3rd.
Miskeen.
And so he's telling
Let me explain it to you.
This is Abu Musa saying they forgot 2 chapters.
This is your ignorance again, right?
What chapter is that?
Let me explain it to you what chapter. That is not a chapter at all. That's actually a hadith.
That's a hadith.
That's a hadith. So let me explain this to you.
So he didn't know.
You waiting? You ready? You okay? Take a breath. Take a breath, bro. This is your last one, but I'm going to kill it with this one. So, when we look at the Sahaba radiyallahu who were the memorizers of the Quran, those that came together with Zayd ibn Thabit, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari is not one of them. Did you know that? They've caught again.
Then the chapter should still be there.
Let me explain. as if you had studied ilm al-rijal, which you didn't, then you would have known that some of the Sahaba to the later type of their age, they had issues with memory, right? And that is why Uthman ibn Affan, may Allah reward him, what he had done before this time, before Abu Musa al-Ashari went to Basra, before he became old, that Uthman radiallahu anhu took the Qurra, the Zayd ibn Thabit ibn Mas'ud ibn Abi Ka'b from Uthman radiallahu anhu himself, and he standardized the Quran. So if somebody, as a person, starts to forget or mix up things, it would not affect the Quran. We know that Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu anhu, towards the later time of his life, had issues with remembering things and confusing things. But that would never affect the Quran, because the Quran was standardized and preserved by Uthman radiallahu anhu in book format and by ijma of the Sahaba in the early time, before the time when Uthman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, and Abu Musa al-Ashari went to Basra. So a person himself, like for example, if I memorize the Quran, and when I get old, I come to this young man, I say, keep reciting the Quran so that your hearts don't become hardened, because I have forgotten many of the ayat of Quran and I recite them incorrectly, it will not affect the preserved, compiled Quran by ijma of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhu.
He gives a verse. He gives a verse out of it though.
He does not. This is a hadith. That's the whole point. Imam al-Nawawi, in his Sharh of Sahih Muslim, he explained that this is actually a hadith, and Abu Musa al-Ashari, because of his old age, was confused. But the Quran, alhamdulillah, was preserved before that time by the consensus of the Sahaba. There are Sahaba who memorized the Quran and forgot parts of it. Like today, there are those who memorize the Quran. But it never affected the preservation of the Quran, because the Qurra, and he is not from them, the Qurra were the precise memorizers who wrote down the entire Quran during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's why Zayd ibn Thabit, when he collected it, he told them to bring from the writing and memory, and only accepting 2 witnesses per ayah, compiled the Quran, standardized, sent out by ijma' of Sahaba, so anybody's personal memory would never affect the Quran after that. Walhamdulillah. It's 6 o'clock, I'm out.
I mean,
You're gonna want to keep going because you know you got destroyed repeatedly.
Oh,
but I gotta
I find it interesting, very interesting, because I've seen that interpretation that you quoted. It's a hadith, and I've seen like 9 different explanations to explain that away.
You can't talk to us.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock.
I'm talking to you. I've noticed. It doesn't seem there's a consensus on what that means.
and by the way,
there's no consensus, right?
The consensus on the Quran's preservation has been documented in Al-Itqan. Go look at it.
Yeah, the consensus. I'm right here. The consensus on the Quran's preservation now, even though you do have the different qira'at and so on, but you go back, different numbers of chapters. You have passages talking about entire chapters coming up missing. You have, according to Aisha, over 100 verses of Surah 33 coming up missing. According to Ubay ibn Ka'b, more than 200 verses missing from Surah 33. Ibn Umar warned people. Ibn Umar warned people. He said, let none of you say, I've memorized the entire Quran, for how does he know what the whole of it is when so much has disappeared? And the response to all of that is, there's a consensus. There's a consensus. We know there's a consensus now, but it doesn't line up with reality.